Chapter 573. Hiss in each of the arenas, the sound of people sucking in cold air could be heard. Yixing dared to call the great Meng royal family's genius juniors ants. Did he want to die? Although no one was allowed to fight in the Starry Sky Arena except for the battle space, it was impossible to stay in the Starry Sky Arena forever. If he angered the Meng royal family, where would he find shelter when he returned to the Star Continent? You're digging your own grave. Honorable Netherflame looked at Honorable Mo Jian with a gloating expression. Honorable Mo Jian's expression was normal. In the central arena, Yixing's words made the faces of the great Yuan dynasty's juniors turn cold. Meng Haokong was one of the most outstanding geniuses in the younger generation of the Yuan dynasty. Yixing said that Meng Haokong was like an ant in his eyes. Then wouldn't these younger geniuses of the Yuan dynasty that had been eliminated be even more like ants? In the sky, Meng Haokong's anger was ignited in an instant, and a terrifying aura exploded. You want to do this the hard way. Kid, you're courting death. Meng Haokong shouted angrily, and a supreme-grade spiritual spear appeared in his hand. Whoosh! A ray of starlight soared into the sky, and turned into a golden star. It was the extreme grade of the metal element. Kill! Meng Haokong thrust out his spear, which flickered with golden light. A surging power that seemed capable of toppling mountains and overturning seas blasted towards Yixing's supreme-grade spiritual weapon, Golden Shadow Stacked Spear. Meng Haokong's martial arts attainments were higher than Shirley's, and his supreme-grade spiritual weapon had reached the complete realm. He was stronger than many half-step honorables. Although he had not reached the stage of communicating with the power of the universe, and controlling the Yuan Qi of the universe, his martial arts attainments and comprehension of the power of the universe were already at the peak of the half-step honorables. In the top 10 of the destiny list, other than Meng Yuanjin, no one else was worthy of Meng Haokong's attention. Yixing immediately took out the dragon blood spear, and performed the wind shadow spear art. With a stab, layers of spear shadows clashed with the golden spear aura. Bang bang bang, with a series of explosions, the layers of spear shadows collapsed, and Yixing kept retreating. Yixing had a slightly surprised expression. That man was indeed much stronger than Shirley. In his current state, he was able to defeat Shirley. However, against Meng Haokong, he was at a disadvantage. Ant of the East Divine Continent, do you think that I, Meng Haokong, am as strong as Shirley, who came from a 2-star empire? Ha! It's too late, die. Meng Haokong's spear strike. Meng Haokong of the Golden Shadow Stacked Spear Art, and his strength to kill Yixing used the Wind Shadow Spear Art. The Wind Shadow Spear Art was at the perfection stage. The spear shadows were endless. No matter how fast Meng Haokong's attacks were, they were all blocked by Yixing. However, in terms of striking power, Yixing hadn't used his astrology, so he was indeed a level lower than Meng Haokong. Thus, in the fierce collision between the two, Yixing was at a disadvantage. I haven't even used my astrology, yet you can't defeat me in a short period of time. I really don't know what you're so excited about. Yixing lightly said, his tone full of sarcasm. Whoosh! As Yixing's voice fell, a beam of starlight shot out from between his eyebrows, turning into a blazing star. Extreme Great Flame Astrology. The power of fire from the unity of heaven and man, combined with the flame astrology, could be displayed to its strongest state. Yixing displayed the Wind Shadow Spear Art. Originally, this martial art only contained wind and darkness attributes. But as Yixing displayed it, it was covered in a layer of flames. Beneath the flame astrology, the power of fire completely overshadowed the wind and darkness attributes. Yixing's spear speed was incomparably fast, each spear faster than the previous one. Now that it contained the power of the flame astrology, its power skyrocketed. In an instant, Meng Haokong's attack was blocked by Yixing. Moreover, the layers of spear shadows covered in a layer of flames continuously destroyed the golden spear aura. The situation began to tilt in Yixing's favor. Die! Die! Meng Haokong was furious. He was a talented junior of the Meng royal family. In the entire Great Yuan dynasty, he thought that he was the only one who was inferior to Meng Yuanjin. He couldn't believe that he would lose to a junior of the East Divine Continent. Meng Haokong desperately pushed the astral aura, displaying his spear art to the limit. At the same time, he executed an extremely profound footwork, changing his position to attack Yixing. He wanted to reverse the situation and defeat Yixing. However, all of Meng Haokong's efforts were in vain. Yixing's spear speed was too fast. With every breath, the number of spear shadows in the void of the formation increased. In just a few breaths, the entire void of the formation was filled with Yixing's spear shadows. Meng Haokong's space to move became smaller and smaller. In the end, he could no longer dodge. "You're defeated," Yixing shouted. His spear broke through Meng Haokong's defense and swept out with the dragon blood spear. Whoosh! A gust of wind whistled in the void. The dragon blood spear swept out so fast that it formed a half-moon shape in the air. The airflow it carried turned into a ray of light. Meng Haokong was horrified. He wanted to withdraw his spear to block, but it was too late. His defense had been broken by Yixing naturally. Yixing wouldn't give him a chance to save himself. The only thing Meng Haokong could do was to push the astral aura to form a shield to protect himself. The dragon blood spear fiercely lashed out at Meng Haokong's barrier, instantly shattering it. Bang! The dragon blood spear collided with Meng Haokong's body, creating a loud explosion. Meng Haokong was immediately sent flying. Then, with another explosion, he crashed heavily into the void of the formation wall. Puff! Even with the top-grade spirit-level inner armor protecting his body and the astral aura protecting his body, the power of Yixing's spear still injured Meng Haokong. He couldn't help but vomit blood. The void of the formation instantly separated Yixing and Meng Haokong. The outcome of this battle had been decided. The 50 feet of destiny that shrouded Meng Haokong suddenly decreased by a tenth. This 5 feet of destiny was not blocked by the void of the formation wall. It turned into a blue airflow and integrated into Yixing's light pillar of destiny. Yixing's light pillar of destiny began to grow taller. It rose by 5 feet to 15 feet tall. The struggle for destiny was divided into 9 rounds. In each round, each martial artist only had a single battle. Yixing and Meng Haokong's battle ended and they returned to their original positions. Yixing smiled, but Meng Haokong was still angry. He glared at Yixing, as if he wanted to skin Yixing alive. "Yixing, you dare to defeat me. Once we return to the Star Continent, you will know the consequences." Meng Haokong glared at Yixing and roared. As the martial artists saw this, they all sighed at Yixing's stubbornness. It wasn't easy for Meng Haokong to break into the top 10 of the Destiny Decree and obtain the destiny of the Star Continent. Why would he want to offend a genius of the great Meng royal family? Wasn't this just asking for trouble? Yixing looked at Meng Haokong, his voice filled with disdain as he said, TSK, once we return to the Star Continent, you want to invite your uncles and grandfathers. A piece of trash like you who only knows how to rely on others can only do so much. Chapter 574. The monthly votes will be added starting tomorrow. Chocolate is going crazy, and the monthly votes will be added soon. Brothers, please support me. Yixing's words made Meng Haokong want to vomit blood. Trash. Meng Haokong was the number 2 genius of the Meng royal clan, and this was the first time he was called trash. Meng Haokong would never admit that he was trash. Bullshit. Meng Haokong, will deal with you personally and take your dog life. Meng Haokong said fiercely. He did have the idea of asking someone for help, but Yixing's words made him give up on the idea. Yixing smiled faintly. It did not matter whether Meng Haokong wanted to do it himself or hire someone else to do it. His goal was to become a son of the stars. Once he returned to the Star Continent, he would become a must-kill person in the Great Yuan dynasty. There were plenty of experts who wanted to kill him. The second pair was Yi Weinan and Meng Xinlan. Both of them were juniors of the Middle Sky Continent. The difference was that one was a disciple of the Meng royal clan of the Deyuan dynasty, while the other was a disciple of the West Leaf Empire. Princess Xinlan, do you dare let Yi Weinan fight with all his strength? Yi Weinan asked Meng Xinlan with cupped fists. Meng Xinlan would definitely not let Yi Weinan go easy on her face. This way, even if Yi Weinan defeated Meng Xinlan would have no reason to blame him. Who wants you to go easy on me? Of course I'll fight with all my strength. Meng Xinlan said faintly. As a genius of the Meng royal clan, she was very confident in her own strength. How could she let others admit defeat to win? She needed a real victory to be happy. This was different from her and Meng Haokong. Alright, Princess Xinlan, sorry for the offense. Yi Weinan apologized. As soon as he finished speaking, a top-grade spiritual weapon appeared in his hand. His entire body erupted with an extremely sharp sword aura. Like Yi Jianga, Yi Weinan was also an expert of the sword. The sharpness of his sword aura was not inferior to Yi Jianga's. 2 streaks of starlight shot into the sky. Yi Weinan and Meng Xinlan both used their astrology. At the same cultivation realm, at the same generation of geniuses, and at the same level of ability to challenge those of a higher cultivation realm, the difference in strength between them would not be too great. They would have to go all out in order to defeat their opponents. Whoosh! Yi Weinan waved the sword in his hand. In an instant, his silhouette disappeared. A beam of sword light tore through the void and instantly appeared in front of Meng Xinlan. Meng Xinlan's figure flashed and disappeared. Wherever her feet passed, the air condensed and flowers bloomed. At the same time, Meng Xinlan pointed out with her finger, and an orchid flower shot out. It spun rapidly, slicing through the void as it shot towards Yi Weinan. Flying orchid spinning finger. Against the diffraction sword. The specialty of the diffraction sword of annihilation was its speed. Once the sword was unleashed, everything would be split into 2. The specialty of the flying orchid spinning finger was its strangeness. Meng Xinlan's figure was erratic, and wherever her finger pointed, orchids would blossom. It looked extremely beautiful, but every single orchid was spinning rapidly and was incomparably sharp. It was definitely not inferior to the attack power of the sword aura. Bang 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 bang, the 2 of them attacked very quickly. Soon, they had exchanged more than 10 moves. Sword light and flower shadows appeared everywhere. The 2 of them shuttled back and forth like flowing light. Ordinary geniuses of the younger generation could not even see their figures clearly. After 20 moves, Yi Weinan groaned miserably as a flying orchid flower hit his body. His clothes were instantly torn apart, revealing the supreme-grade spirit-level inner armor underneath. The finger aura could not break through the inner armor, but the power contained within it still caused Yi Weinan to spit out blood and fly backwards. The formation instantly separated the 2 of them. Meng Xinlan was indeed a member of the Meng royal family. She was extremely powerful and won this battle. 1/10 of Yi Weinan's light beam of providence instantly disappeared. It turned into a green stream of air and entered Meng Xinlan's light beam of providence, causing it to grow taller. It was now 15 feet tall. Yi Weinan returned to his original position. He wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth and cupped his fists. Princess Xinlan is indeed powerful. I, Yi Weinan, concede defeat. Thank you for letting me win. Meng Xinlan smiled. She was in a good mood. Another 2 people were moved to the center of the formation. The third battle was between Wei Qingxian and Duan Xueqing. Wei Qingxian, a junior genius of the East Divine Continent. Duan Xueqing, a junior genius of the Great Yuan Dynasty. In terms of background, Duan Xueqing was clearly much higher. In terms of cultivation, Duan Xueqing was even a venerable 9-star. In this battle, other than Yixing, whether it was the seniors or juniors, all the martial artists believed that Duan Xueqing would win. Yixing was very confident in Wei Qingxian. He knew that Wei Qingxian was the same as him. They both had big secrets. If they really fought, Yixing did not have absolute confidence in beating her. East Divine Continent Sichuan. Please enlighten me. Wei Qingxian cupped her fists and said. Little sister Zixuan is so pretty. Be careful. Big sister will not hold back. Don't get hurt. Duan Xueqing smiled and was full of confidence. As she spoke, Duan Xueqing's surroundings were suddenly covered in frost. Ice and snow floated in the air. A cold aura was emitted and turned into white gas. Like Wei Qingxian, she was an ice-attributed martial artist. Wei Qingxuan's expression was normal. She also emitted an extremely cold aura. In an instant, the entire formation space was covered in frost. Both of them were ice-attributed. In terms of aura, neither could do anything to the other. Ice Dragon's 9 Swords. Duan Xueqing shouted coldly and executed the Duan family's supreme-grade spiritual martial arts. She did not have a sword in her hand. However, as her hand seals changed, the icy astral energy exploded and formed an Ice Dragon Sword Qi. The Ice Dragon Sword Qi was extremely cold. Furthermore, it contained a sharp aura. Wherever it passed, the air would shatter and be sliced into countless pieces. Fluttering Snow Palm. Wei Qingxian was as cold as ice. She struck out with her snow-white palm. Snow fell from the sky. The icy palm print brought along an extremely cold wind and whistled forward. Transformative stage Fluttering Snow Palm. It collided with the perfected 9 swords of the Ice Dragon. Both shattered. In terms of martial arts attainments, Wei Qingxian was a notch higher. Moreover, Wei Qingxian had also comprehended the great accomplishment of the force of ice and the unity of heaven and man. Even though her cultivation was inferior to Duan Xueqing's, her strength was not inferior at all. Bang 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 bang, the Ice Dragon Sword Qi and Fluttering Snow Palm print continuously collided. In the blink of an eye, the two had already exchanged a few blows and were evenly matched. The spectating martial artists were all shocked. Another 8-star venerable was able to fight evenly with a 9-star venerable. This meant that Wei Qingxian had the ability to challenge those of a higher level. Just like Yixing and Yi Jianga, she could challenge those of a higher level. Duan Xueqing was surprised and secretly frowned. She never expected that Wei Qingxuan's strength was not inferior to hers. If I don't use my astrology, I have no hope of winning. I don't believe that her astrology can be compared to mine. Duan Xueqing thought to herself and immediately used her astrology. Starlight shot into the sky and turned into an ice star. It was an extreme grade astrology. The power of the ice element astrology fell. Duan Xueqing's cold aura became stronger and her strength multiplied. Whoosh, Wei Qingxian used her astrology at the same time. The cold aura exploded. It was also an ice element astrology and was not inferior to Duan Xueqing's. Chapter 575. Even with the same level of astrology, there were differences in strength. Wei Qingxuan's frost astrology was obviously more powerful than Duan Xueqing's. Before she used her astrology, the two of them were evenly matched. Once she used her astrology, the situation immediately changed. Under the frost astrology, Wei Qingxuan's strength skyrocketed. The frost palm brought along an extremely cold wind and forced Duan Xueqing to retreat. After 10 moves, Duan Shuiqing retreated to the edge of the array. Behind her was the array wall, and she had nowhere to go. Duan Shuiqing was forced back by the terrifying power of the Snowdrift Divine Palm. Her body crashed into the array wall, and blood flowed out of her mouth. She lost this battle. Whoosh! The Providence light pillar that enveloped Duan Shuiqing was instantly reduced by 5 feet. It turned into a current of air and entered Wei Qingshuan's Providence light pillar. Wei Qingshuan's light pillar of Providence expanded to 5 feet and 5 feet. The two of them returned to their original positions, and 2 more were moved to the center of the array. The fourth battle was between the North Tranquil Continent's junior genius, Yi Jianga, and the De Yuan dynasty's junior genius, Zhou Haoge. Yi Jianga, 7-star venerable. Zhou Haoge, 9-star venerable. They were both juniors of the royal families, and they were all experts among the half-step honorable realm. All the martial artists were instantly energized. Yixing was also a 7-star venerable, and his opponent, Shirlei, was also a 9-star venerable. In the end, Yixing revealed his true cultivation as a Stage 8 astral realm cultivator to defeat Shirlei. Yi Jianga's performance was heaven-defying, and she wasn't any weaker than Yixing. Was there any hope for her to win against 9-star venerable? If there was, how could Yi Jianga win? In the eyes of the martial artists, it was impossible for a 7-star venerable to defeat a 9-star venerable. Unless Yi Jianga's true cultivation was at Stage 8 astral realm like Yixing. In the sky, Yi Jianga and Zhou Haoge stood facing each other. They looked at each other, and their auras were shocking. Yi Jianga's aura was as sharp as a peerless sword, revealing a terrifying sharpness. Zhou Haoge's aura was as heavy as a mountain. He was surrounded by earth energy and did not move an inch. The Zhou clan was a king clan, and their ultimate technique was the Heavenly Cycle Astral Qi. The Heavenly Cycle Astral Qi was split into the Minor Heavenly Cycle Astral Qi and the Major Heavenly Cycle Astral Qi. The Lesser Heavenly Cycle Gang Qi was a spirit tier martial art. Its Gang Qi was like a flood dragon. The Zhou Tian Gang Qi, a black-grade martial art, the Gang Qi was like a dragon. Zhou Haoge's Minor Dipper Heavenly Dipper Qi had already been cultivated to an extremely profound level. A gigantic Jiao Qi coiled around his body. Its back claws grabbed onto Zhou Haoge's waist while its front claws grabbed onto Zhou Haoge's shoulders. The Jiao Qi's head was raised above Zhou Haoge's head. Its aura was extremely terrifying. Even though Yi Jianga had an innate sword physique and possessed heaven-defying battle prowess, she still had to face Zhou Haoge with a grave expression. Zhou Haoge's flood dragon aura protected his body with a heaven-shaking might. It was almost flawless, which made Yi Jianga feel troubled. Yi Jianga, bring it on! Zhou Haoge shouted. Yi Jianga's cultivation was 2 realms lower than his, so he gave Yi Jianga the chance to make the first move. A supreme-grade spiritual weapon appeared in Yi Jianga's hand, causing his sword aura to become even sharper. He narrowed his eyes and suddenly became one with the sword, turning into a sword light and disappearing in a flash. In the next moment, a sword light sliced the air in half and appeared behind Zhou Haoge in an instant. Previously, Yi Jianga had relied on such an attack to defeat Liang Long with a counterattack. Unfortunately, Liang Long was only an 8-star venerable master and his strength was far from Zhou Haoge's. When the sword light appeared behind Zhou Haoge immediately sensed it. The Jiao Qi coiling around his body instantly moved and swung out its claws. Bang! The Jiao Qi's claws grabbed onto the Jiao Qi in an instant. The Jiao Qi's claws exploded and sparks flew. This sharp sword was actually blocked by the Jiao Qi's claws. At the same time, Zhou Haoge turned around and struck out with his palm. Another Jiao Qi shot out from his palm and rushed towards Yi Jianga. This Jiao Qi was smaller than the one coiling around Zhou Haoge, but its power was still terrifying. Yi Jianga's body flickered like a sword light and instantly retreated, dodging the small Jiao Qi's attack. Whoosh! Yi Jiang's body moved like a sword. Like a flickering sword light, it was extremely fast. In the blink of an eye, it dodged the small Jiao Qi's attack and counterattacked. Bang! The Jiao Qi coiling around Zhou Haoge's body reacted quickly. No matter how fast Yi Jiang's speed was, it was blocked by the Jiao Qi's claws. Bang, 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 bang. In the blink of an eye, Yi Jiang had already attacked 10 times. However, before the tip of the sword could land on Zhou Haoge's body, it was repulsed. Otherwise, if it was a moment slower, it would have been hit by Zhou Haoge's small Jiao Qi and be injured. You're stronger than I expected. I didn't want to use astrology to defeat you, but it seems that it's too troublesome. Let's end this battle quickly. Zhou Haoge shouted. In an instant, a ray of starlight shot into the sky. He had used astrology. At the same time, Zhou Haoge took a step forward and moved, displaying Wei Tao's exquisite footwork. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The Jiao Qi's body twisted, increasing Zhou Haoge's speed to the extreme. Like a shadow, he took the initiative to attack Yi Jiang. Every time Zhou Haoge punched out, there would be a small flood dragon aura that contained a terrifying amount of power shooting forward. Under the extreme level of astrology, Zhou Haoge's strength was multiplied and his speed was even faster. When the Jiao Qi attacked, its terrifying power forced Yi Jiang to retreat. Whoosh! A ray of starlight shot into the sky. Yi Jiang had also used astrology. The golden light was resplendent. It was the metal element astrology. What surprised the crowd was that Yi Jiang's astrology was only at the high level. Even the top 100 of the heavenly fate ranking mostly had extreme level astrology. Yi Jiang's astrology was only at the high level. It could be said that his astrology was at the low level. Yi Jiang's astrology was far inferior to Zhou Haoge's extreme level astrology. It couldn't reverse his disadvantage. It's only at the high level astrology. How is this possible? What a pity, such good talent, but such an ordinary astrology. Many martial artists sighed, feeling very surprised. Ha! So your astrology is only at the high level. Zhou Haoge laughed and said, but it doesn't matter. Even if you have an extreme level astrology, you will still lose. As he spoke, Zhou Haoge's attacks became faster and more Jiao Qi were shot out. At the same time, other than the Jiao Qi that coiled around his body, there were a total of 8 Jiao Qi that danced in the air. The 8 Jiao Qi attacked Yi Jiang from all directions, occupying almost half of the array space. Even though Yi Jiang's swordsmanship was godly, he was still a little flustered and kept retreating. However, Yi Jiang's eyes were calm. His hands were flustered and his heart was calm. Soon, Yi Jiang retreated to the edge of the array space. Behind him was the void array wall and there was no way to retreat. You're defeated. Zhou Haoge shouted and his aura exploded to the limit. The 8 Jiao Qi attacked Yi Jiang at the same time. Chapter 576. At the same time, Yi Jiang's aura skyrocketed. He was originally in the 7th stage of the astral star realm, but he suddenly broke through and stepped into the 8th stage of the astral star realm. This wasn't an explosion of cultivation after the seal was removed, but a sudden breakthrough in his cultivation. Although the two looked similar, a cultivator could tell the difference between a breakthrough and the exposure of one's cultivation. Yi Jiang's breakthrough in the middle of the battle to become an 8-star realm venerable was out of everyone's expectations. As an innate sword physique, the higher one's cultivation, the stronger one's strength would be. Yi Jiang's sword aura skyrocketed in an instant. That terrifying aura shocked all the younger generation. Whoosh! Yi Jiang swung her sword horizontally. Sword light flashed, like a dazzling white light, streaking across the surroundings. The 8 draconic dragons were all cut in half by the sword light. What? Zhou Haoge was horrified and immediately retreated. Yi Jiang's cultivation had broken through, and her strength had increased tremendously. Even though Zhou Haoge was a genius of Venerable 9 Star's younger generation, and his combat strength was in the upper tier among half-step honorable realm experts, he still felt his heart palpitate when facing Yi Jiang. I'm just a little bit away from the 8th stage of the astral star realm. I didn't feel any pressure in the previous battles, but I couldn't cross the last bit. Zhou Haoge, you're the only one who forced me to surpass my limits. I have to thank you. Yi Jiang wasn't in a hurry to counterattack. He held his supreme-grade spiritual artifact and slowly walked towards Zhou Haoge. The powerful sword aura condensed into a huge sword shadow, enveloping Yi Jiang. Wherever he went, the surrounding air currents would be sliced apart like a mirror. The sharpness of the sword aura was terrifying. Looking at Yi Jiang, Zhou Haoge's aura crumbled. In just a few breaths' time, Yi Jiang's aura had completely suppressed Zhou Haoge. Zhou Haoge furrowed his brows. He didn't want Yi Jiang's gratitude. Allowing Yi Jiang's cultivation to break through was a complete accident. If he was given another chance, he would have cut the Gordian knot and used 120% of his strength to defeat Yi Jiang with lightning speed. Unfortunately, there was no if. Zhou Haoge's eyes were filled with hatred. He snorted, "You've broken through, and you're indeed powerful. Not many half-step venerable realm are your opponents. However, I won't let you win so easily." Yi Jiang smiled and said, "My breakthrough is because of you. Don't worry, I won't let you lose too badly." Hearing Yi Jiang's words, Zhou Haoge's face was filled with displeasure. Sword. At this moment, Yi Jiang let out a clear cry. She waved the treasured sword in her hand and a dazzling white sword ray instantly shot out. The seemingly casual slash was actually executed through the body of the sword. His swordsmanship had reached the acme of perfection, resulting in a terrifying might. The sharpness of the sword aura was so sharp that even the astral aura of a half-martial highness realm expert could not resist it. Heavenly domains, swords Yi Jiang is Yi. However, under Yi Jiang's sword aura, the 8 astral beams were instantly cut into 2. Wherever the sword aura passed, the cut area was as smooth as a mirror. Zhou Haoge executed his footwork and barely dodged the sword intent. Before he could launch another attack, Yi Jiang's second attack had already arrived. "Take my sword. Take my sword." Every time Yi Jiang made a move, he would remind Zhou Xuanji. However, Yi Jiang's speed was too fast. As soon as he finished speaking, the sword light arrived. If Zhou Haoge were to judge the sword force from his voice, he would not be able to make it in time. With every swing of her sword, Zhou Haoge's attack was instantly split apart by the sword ray. In just a few swings, the gigantic Jiao Qi outside Zhou Haoge's body was also cut into pieces by Yi Jiang's Jiao Qi. After Yi Jiang's 10th sword strike, the astral energy surrounding Zhou Haoge's body was completely split apart. The sharp radiance from the astral energy slashed onto Zhou Haoge's body, instantly tearing his clothes apart. A clear white mark appeared on Zhou Haoge's inner armor after being struck by the astral sword. His body was instantly pushed back by the force of the astral sword. Part of the sharp sword qi penetrated the inner armor and entered Zhou Haoge's body, causing him to spit out a mouthful of blood. Zhou Haoge spat out a mouthful of blood. The outcome of this battle had already been decided. The formation separated the two of them. Zhou Haoge's Providence Light Pillar suddenly disappeared by 5 feet. It turned into a stream of air and entered Yi Jiang's Providence Light Pillar. After Yi Xing, Meng Xinlan, and Wei Qingxian, Yi Jiang's Providence Light Pillar was the 4th to reach 5.5 feet. The battle for Providence this time is really fierce. Monstrous geniuses that are rarely seen in thousands of years have appeared one after another. Yi Xing, Zi Xian, and Yi Jianga, the 3 8-star venerables, actually defeated the 9-star venerables' genius opponents in the battle for providence. Such a grand occasion has never been seen in the history of the star continent. In the arena below, the cultivators from various continents were sighing with emotion. Yi Jianga and Zhou Haoge returned to their original positions. The two who had yet to appear in the first round of battle were moved to the center by the formation's power. Both of them were geniuses of the great Yuan dynasty's younger generation. One of them was the Yi royal clan's younger generation, Yi Rulong, while the other was the great Yuan dynasty's prince, Meng Yuanjun. Yi Rulong and Meng Yuanjun, in the battle for the top 10 of the destiny list, had easily defeated their opponents in the same group. They did not reveal their true strength. The other cultivators could not judge how high their strength was. Both of them were the younger generation of the great Yuan dynasty, the younger generation of the 9-star venerables. In the eyes of the other cultivators, this was another fierce battle. For this battle, I admit defeat. To the surprise of the other cultivators, Yi Rulong directly admitted defeat in the face of Meng Yuanjun. As he spoke, Yi Rulong raised his palm and was about to give himself a palm strike to injure himself and vomit blood. Wait! Meng Yuanjun casually waved his hand and stopped Yi Rulong's action. He said, "Do I, Meng Yuanjun, need others to admit defeat to win? Yi Rulong, use your astrology and exert your strength to the limit. If you dare to give in, this prince will not forgive you." Meng Yuanjun's character was completely opposite to Meng Haokong's. Meng Haokong liked others to admit defeat directly, but Meng Yuanjun did not allow others to admit defeat. Moreover, he wanted his opponent to go all out and exert their strength to the limit. Otherwise, he would fly into a rage. Yi Rulong nodded and said, "Okay, then I'll go all out." As soon as he finished speaking, Yi Rulong's aura erupted. A ray of starlight soared into the sky and turned into a flashing star. It was the lightning attribute's extreme grade astrology. The lightning attribute's astrology was extremely rare. In terms of attack power, the lightning attribute's astrology overshadowed the others and could be said to be number one. Yi Rulong's black hair fluttered in the wind. He held a top-grade spirit spear in his hand. His aura surged, surpassing any of the previous geniuses. Even Meng Haokong, who was at the peak of the half-step venerable realm, was inferior to Yi Rulong in terms of aura. Chapter 577. Meng Yuanjun looked at Yi Rulong indifferently and said, "Very well, as this prince's opponent, you have to be crushed by me in your strongest state." Meng Yuanjun's aura erupted, and the surrounding void airflow was pulled by an invisible force, surging like a storm, revolving around Meng Yuanjun. When the martial artists heard Meng Yuanjun's words, they were all surprised. Crush. Meng Yuanjun did not say defeat but crush. The word crush could only be used to describe a situation where there was a great disparity in strength. Crushing meant that one could defeat one's opponent as easily as crushing dry weeds. Both of them were venerable 9 stars, and Yi Rulong's aura was surging. His strength was definitely not low, no less than Meng Haokong. If Meng Yuanjun could crush Yi Rulong, what kind of strength would that be? Crush. Ha! Your Highness Yuanjun, do you know what crushing is? When Yi Rulong heard Meng Yuanjun's words, his face turned green, and he was very unhappy. Yi Rulong's combat strength was heaven-defying, and he was one of the best among the younger generation of the Middle Sky continent. As for Meng Yuanjun, although mysterious, he did not have a strong battle record. Yi Rulong did not believe that the other party had the strength to crush him. "Then you judge whether or not I'm crushing you," Meng Yuanjun said. As soon as his voice fell, Meng Yuanjun suddenly rushed forward, his figure turning into a straight line as he rushed towards Yi Rulong. Fast, his speed was too fast. Going straight, rampaging, without the slightest factor affecting his speed. This was the fastest speed. Meng Yuanjun instantly appeared in front of Yi Rulong and blasted out a punch. Boom! The void exploded, and the void in front of him was instantly squeezed, and the tip of the fist flickered. The momentum of this punch was like the collapse of the sky, a tsunami, and a landslide. It was much more terrifying than a half-step venerable activating a trace of the world's origin energy. Yi Rulong's expression changed in an instant. But as a top genius among the Venerable 9 stars, his reaction was extremely fast, and the treasure spear in his hand bloomed with a bright light. The treasure spear swept horizontally, and a defensive spear move was displayed. Boom! With a loud bang, a bright light burst out from the point of collision, instantly drowning the entire array formation, turning it into a white light. Bang! Almost at the same time, there was another explosion. In just a breath's time, the burst of dazzling light disappeared, and the scene in the void array fell into the eyes of the cultivators. Meng Yuanjun stood at the place where he collided with Yi Rulong without moving, while Yi Rulong's body had retreated far to the rear of the void array wall. His whole body was stuck to the void array wall. Under the gazes of all the cultivators present, Yi Rulong clung to the void array for a full breath of time before the impact seemed to dissipate and his body slid down. Poof! Yi Rulong had just landed on the ground of the array formation when he could no longer suppress the surging qi and blood in his body. He spat out a mouthful of blood. All the martial artists were dumbfounded. Yi Rulong was defeated by Meng Yuanjun in one move. Furthermore, Meng Yuanjun did not use his astrology, but Yi Rulong did. His strength was at its strongest. Meng Yuanjun was right. He had indeed crushed Yi Rulong. If this wasn't crushing, then what was? The void array wall separated the two in an instant. Yi Rulong's light pillar of providence instantly disappeared by 1/10, turning into a cyan airflow that was injected into Meng Yuanjun's qi. Meng Yuanjun became the 5th person whose light pillar of providence had grown to 15 feet. But what was shocking was not the growth of Meng Yuanjun's light pillar of providence, but the terrifying strength that Meng Yuanjun had displayed. In the previous battles, Meng Yuanjun had casually defeated all his opponents. His strength had never been revealed, but this time, he deliberately revealed his edge, causing all the cultivators to be dumbfounded and shocked in their hearts. With such terrifying strength, it was easy for him to sweep away a half-step venerable. All the cultivators instantly knew that this year's Son of the Stars would definitely be Meng Yuanjun. Whether it was a monstrous genius like Yi Xing, Wei Qingxian, or Yi Jianga, all of them had heaven-defying combat strength. In the high astral realm, they could still maintain a terrifying combat strength that allowed them to defeat opponents 2 realms higher than them. However, in the hearts of the cultivators, Yi Xing and the other 2 couldn't be compared to Meng Yuanjun. Meng Yuanjun had defeated Yi Rulong, who was in his strongest state, in one move without using astrology. It was completely clear that Meng Yuanjun's ability to challenge opponents above his realm was also extremely abnormal, not inferior to Yi Xing and the other 2. Meng Yuanjun also had heaven-defying combat strength that allowed him to defeat opponents 2 realms higher than him. Right now, he was a 9-star venerable, while Yi Xing and the other 2 were 8-star venerables. There was a huge disparity in their combat strength. Meng Yuanjun's strength is too frightening. He didn't even use astrology to crush Yi Rulong, and his strength hasn't completely erupted. Unless an astral-reaching venerable makes a move, who can be his opponent? In this year's genius selection, there are actually 4 heaven-defying monstrous geniuses who can defeat opponents 2 realms higher than them. What kind of golden age is this? It's a miracle in history. What a pity, what a pity. With so many heaven-defying monstrous geniuses, I thought that this genius selection would break Great Yuan Dynasty's monopoly on the destiny list. Who would have thought that the Meng clan would also produce such a heaven-defying monstrous genius? Moreover, his cultivation is even higher than the other 3 monstrous geniuses. The heavens are protecting Great Yuan Dynasty. All the cultivators felt as if 10,000 horses were galloping through their hearts. Each and every one of them sighed with emotion. In the sky, Yi Rulong's expression was aghast as he looked at Meng Yuanjun. His face was filled with fear, and even some fear. As for Meng Yuanjun, his expression was the same as usual, but the corners of his mouth were slightly raised, faintly revealing traces of arrogance. The two were sent back to their original places, and a voice resounded from the array, "The first round is over. The second round will begin in an hour." Meng Yuanjun's gaze swept past the other 9 geniuses in the sky, and paused for a second on Yixing and Yi Jianga. Meng Yuanjun didn't put the other 9 geniuses in his eyes. He retracted his gaze and sat cross-legged with a grave expression, closing his eyes to rest. Yixing's gaze met with Wei Qingshuan's not far away. Both of them had astonishment in their eyes. They were very surprised by Meng Yuanjun's strength, and both of them regarded Meng Yuanjun as a great enemy. Yi Jianga's gaze imperceptibly glanced at Meng Yuanjun before closing her eyes to rest. Clearly, she was also deeply afraid of Meng Yuanjun. As for the other geniuses of the younger generation, their eyes were filled with fear when facing Meng Yuanjun. Meng Yuanjun's iceberg of strength had stunned all the geniuses of the younger generation. Even Yixing, who had only revealed the iceberg of strength, felt a lot of pressure from Meng Yuanjun. Although he was already prepared, it wouldn't be that easy for him to become a son of the stars this time. Chapter 578. The rest is over. The second round begins. Half an hour later, the voice in the formation echoed on time. Yixing was one of the first 2 to be moved to the center of the array. The other was Zhou Haoge. Seeing that his opponent was Yixing, Zhou Haoge was stunned. It was another 8-star upper realm genius. In the first round, Zhou Haoge lost to Yi Jianga. He was extremely depressed. He was a genius of the younger generation of the Diyuan dynasty, a proud son of the Qing clan. He didn't want to be defeated again and again. Zhou Haoge's eyes were firm and filled with battle intent. He was determined to defeat Yixing and restore his reputation. Heavenly Cycle Gang Qi. Wind Shadow Spear Art. The 2 of them did not say much. Soon, they unleashed their supreme-grade spiritual martial arts and attacked at the same time. As they attacked, they both used their astrology. Zhou Haoge's Flood Dragon Aura was unleashed. 8 Flood Dragon Aura danced in the air with a terrifying power that could destroy mountains. However, Yixing's attack was even more terrifying. As the dragon blood spear stabbed out, the sky was filled with spear shadows in the blink of an eye. Moreover, the power of the spear shadows was extremely terrifying. The 8 Flood Dragon Aura were all shattered upon contact. What? Zhou Haoge was shocked. It was already terrifying for him to encounter Yi Jianga. However, Yixing's strength was not inferior to Yi Jianga's. Swish! 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 Yixing stabbed out with the dragon blood spear in his hand. Using speed against speed, the densely packed Flood Dragon Aura attacked Zhou Haoge from all directions. Zhou Haoge unleashed his strength to the limit. However, he could not block Yixing's attack. In less than 10 moves, he was hit by Yixing's spear. His body flew out and crashed into the void array wall. He spat out blood. Zhou Haoge was defeated. The void array wall separated the 2 instantly. Zhou Haoge's Providence Light Pillar was reduced by another 5 feet. On the other hand, Yixing's Providence Light Pillar increased by another 5 feet. It was now 6 feet tall. Zhou Haoge's Light Pillar of Providence was much fainter than when it was 15 meters tall. On the other hand, Yixing's Light Pillar of Providence was a little darker than when it was 15 meters tall. It seemed that the higher the Light Pillar of Providence, the deeper the color, and the stronger the providence. The result of this battle was within the expectations of all the cultivators. Meng Haokong's strength was extremely powerful, and he was famous in the Great Yuan dynasty. He was stronger than Zhou Haoge, not weaker. Yixing had defeated Meng Hao in the first round. Therefore, other than Meng Yuanjun and Wei Qingxian and Yi Jianga, who were equally powerful, the other Venerable Nine Stars geniuses would most likely lose to him. The geniuses of the second team were Yi Jianga and Duan Shueqing. Yi Jianga's strength was indeed powerful. Duan Shueqing's 9 swords of the Ice Dragon was suppressed by Yi Jianga's sword force and was forced to retreat bit by bit. Wherever the sword light passed, the frosty air would turn into nothingness. In less than 10 moves, Yi Jianga defeated Duan Shueqing as easily as crushing dry weeds and smashing rotten wood. Like Zhou Haoge, Duan Shueqing suffered 2 consecutive defeats, and her light pillar of providence was reduced to 40 meters. Yi Jianga followed in Yixing's footsteps, and her light pillar of providence reached 60 meters. The geniuses of the third team were Yi Weinan and Yi Rulong. Both of them were geniuses with the surname Yi, and both of them were Venerable 9 Stars. In the eyes of all the cultivators, the two of them should be about the same strength. However, when the two of them exchanged blows, all the cultivators were shocked. Yi Rulong's spear technique was like a dragon, and it was unstoppable. The moment he made his move, his might shook the heavens, and he gained the upper hand. After more than 10 moves, the battle ended. Yi Rulong won this battle with an overwhelming advantage. He won back the 5 feet of providence that he lost in the previous round, and his light pillar of providence became 50 meters again. As for Yi Weinan, he suffered 2 consecutive defeats, and his light pillar of providence was reduced to 40 meters. Yi Rulong was very strong. This was the intuition of all the cultivators. However, the stronger Yi Rulong was, the more shocked the cultivators were. Meng Yuanjun was able to defeat Yi Rulong in 1 move, and this meant that Meng Yuanjun's strength was even more heaven-defying. The fourth match, Wei Qingxian vs Meng Xinlan. In the previous 3 matches, the two of them either won 1 and lost 1 in the first round, or they were both losers. However, Wei Qingxian and Meng Xinlan were both winners in the first round. In the first round, Wei Qingxian defeated Duan Shueqing, and Meng Xinlan defeated Yi Weinan. This round was a clash of the strong. Divine Fluttering Snow Palm. Orchid Whirling Finger. The two of them made their moves, and it was a beautiful sight. One of them was a sky full of snow, while the other was a finger that was like a flower. Wei Qingxuan's steps were like ice lotuses, and the sky was full of snowflakes. The cold air was extremely cold, and the moment Meng Xinlan's orchid whirling finger appeared, it was covered in a layer of ice. Whether it was power or speed, it was reduced by a level. However, Meng Xinlan's strength was extraordinary, and she was at the top of half-step supremacies. Even though the power of her orchid whirling finger was suppressed, she was still evenly matched with Wei Qingxian. The two of them exchanged palms and fingers, and their figures shuttled back and forth. Soon, they had exchanged more than 10 moves, and neither of them could do anything to the other. Just as some people were speculating how long this evenly matched battle would last, the cold air and the void of the array suddenly became stronger. The supreme grade spirit weapon, Icicle Edge Sword, appeared in Wei Qingxuan's hand. The martial art she used changed from the divine fluttering snow palm to the ice condensation sword technique. The ice condensation sword technique was Wei Qingxuan's most powerful martial art. In an instant, Wei Qingxuan's aura became several times sharper, and her attack power rose rapidly. With a wave of her sword, the ice sword aura shot to the end of the void of the array. The power of the Icy Star aspect, Icy Force, Icy Star Aura, and Icy Star Aura merged perfectly with the power of the ice martial art. Wei Qingxuan's strength rose to an even higher state, and she was like an ice goddess, with a layer of ice armor forming outside her body. Wherever she went, the void would freeze with her as the center. That extreme cold made Meng Xinlan shiver, and her strength was severely suppressed. As one fell and the other rose, the situation changed greatly in an instant. After using the ice condensation sword technique, Meng Xinlan was defeated in just a few moves. Meng Xinlan's Providence Light Beam retreated to 15 meters, while Wei Qingxian won 2 consecutive battles, and her Providence Light Beam increased to 60 meters. After the battle, the martial artists were amazed. They thought that Wei Qingxian was weaker than Yi Xing and Yi Jianga, the two abnormal people. But now, it seemed that Wei Qingxuan's battle power was not inferior to the two of them. The 3 8-star venerables all had abnormal battle power. Wei Qingxian and Meng Xinlan were moved to their original positions in the air. Wei Qingxuan's cold air dissipated, and she kept her icicle-edged sword. She looked as beautiful as a fairy, and it was hard to imagine that such a beautiful appearance actually contained such terrifying power. The last battle of the second round was between Meng Yuanjun and Meng Haokong. There was no doubt about the result. Meng Haokong wanted to admit defeat, but Meng Yuanjun wouldn't allow it. He was defeated by Meng Yuanjun in one move when his strength was at its strongest. It was another gorgeous strike, and it shocked all the martial artists. Meng Yuanjun's super strong battle power successfully attracted the attention of all the martial artists. Even if the 3 8-star venerables, Yi Xing, Wei Qingxian, and Yi Jianga, were monstrous and heaven-defying, they would still be suppressed by Meng Yuanjun. It's the end of the month, please vote. Chapter 579. After an hour of rest, the third round of battles began. Yi Xing was still the first to go up. His opponent was Duan Xueqing. This was a battle without any suspense. The final result was as expected. Yi Xing won and his Providence Light Pillar grew to 25 feet. Duan Xueqing lost 3 rounds in a row and her Providence Light Pillar decreased to 45 feet. In the second group of the third round, Yi Jianga and Meng Xinlan went up. Meng Xinlan lost to Wei Qingxian in the second round. Naturally, she lost more than she won against Yi Jianga. After more than 10 moves, Meng Xinlan lost and her Providence Light Pillar decreased to 55 feet. Yi Jianga's Providence Light Pillar followed closely behind Yi Xing and grew to 25 feet. In the third group of the third round, Yi Weinan fought against Meng Haokong. Meng Haokong won. In the fourth group of the third round, Wei Qingxian fought against Yi Rulong. There was no suspense in the first 3 matches. The results were within the expectations of the cultivators. However, the battle between Wei Qingxian and Yi Rulong was a little difficult to judge. Although Yi Rulong lost to Meng Yuanjun, he easily defeated Yi Weinan in the second round. This proved his strength. Among the younger generation of the 9-star venerables, other than Meng Yuanjun, there was almost no one who could match him. Fluttering Snow Palm. Flying Dragon Spear Art. Wei Qingxuan's cold chi was oppressive. She struck out with her palm. Wherever the cold wind passed, snowflakes would flutter and frost would appear. Yi Rulong's supreme-grade spiritual weapon was like a huge dragon in his hand. Wherever the spear aura passed, the frost would shatter and the cold chi would disappear. His spear art was bold and powerful. Once it was formed, it was like a gust of wind sweeping away fallen leaves. Wei Qingxuan's fluttering snow palm had no advantage against Yi Rulong. However, Wei Qingxian was not at her strongest state when she used fluttering snow palm. Seeing that she was at a disadvantage, Wei Qingxian took out her icicle sword and used ice condensation sword art. Whoosh! With a swing of his sword, a frosty sword energy shot out. Wherever the sword energy passed, it left an ice scar in the void. Cold chi condensed and did not dissipate. The momentum of Yi Rulong's spear technique was instantly cut apart by the cold ice sword aura. For a moment, the surrounding cold chi became heavier and heavier, and Yi Rulong was powerless to disperse it. Heaven's Sealing Frost. Soaring Dragon. The two of them unleashed their ultimate moves. Wei Qingxuan's ice sword aura was about to seal the sky, while Yi Rulong stabbed out with his spear. His spear aura was like a flying dragon, about to sweep across the horizon. Bang 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 bang, cold ice sword aura and flying dragon spear aura collided non-stop, causing a series of explosions. The flying dragon spear aura was gradually covered with a layer of frost and was gradually frozen by the ice sword aura. In just a few breaths, it had turned into an ice dragon. The extreme cold spread along the flying dragon spear aura. Yi Rulong's arm that was holding the spear was instantly covered in white frost. The extremely cold aura entered his body through his arm, causing him to shiver. Whoosh! Yi Rulong saw that the situation was not good and quickly retreated. The cold qi was too fierce, and when it entered his body, it caused his blood and qi to turn cold. 100 miles of ice. Wei Qingxian took a step forward, and ice lotuses formed under her feet. She swung her sword, and the ice sword aura shot out along the ice edge. It was several times faster than Yi Rulong's retreating speed. Kill! Yi Rulong circulated his astral energy to the maximum and unleashed a powerful attack. Only then did he manage to shatter the ice sword aura. However, his entire body was affected by the cold qi and was covered with a layer of frost. The cold qi inside and outside of his body resonated with each other and froze at the same time. It almost froze his blood and qi. Yi Rulong retreated all the way to the end of the void formation. His back was against the void formation's wall before he stopped. He circulated his astral energy with all his might to refine the cold qi. Wei Qingxian did not continue to attack. She withdrew her sword and stood there. In just a breath's time, the frost on Yi Rulong's body disappeared. He seemed to be fine. However, in the next moment, puff! Yi Rulong spat out a mouthful of blood. The blood was condensed into fragments, and the cold qi was oppressive. Yi Rulong was indeed fine. He had forced the cold qi out of his body. However, at the same time, he had also suffered some injuries. When he forced out the cold qi, he spat out blood at the same time. Yi Rulong had lost this battle. Yi Rulong's light pillar of providence was reduced to 15 feet. Wei Qingxian, Yi Xing, and Yi Jianga's light pillar of providence was increased to 15 feet. The final battle of the third round was between Meng Yuanjun and Zhou Haoge. Zhou Haoge had been defeated by Yi Xing and Yi Jianga. He was at a disadvantage against Meng Yuanjun. Meng Yuanjun still attacked aggressively. When Zhou Haoge's strength was unleashed to the limit, Meng Yuanjun defeated Zhou Haoge in one move. Zhou Haoge's 9-flood dragon aura was shattered by Meng Yuanjun's punch. Then, his body was blasted back in an instant and hung on the void formation's wall. After 2 breaths, he fell down and spat out a mouthful of blood. Meng Yuanjun was like a finale. He was always the last to appear in every round. He crushed his opponent with lightning speed, and his light pillar of providence had also increased to 15 feet. After an hour of rest, the 4th round of battles began. Yi Xing was still in the first group. The order was as follows: Yi Xing against Meng Xinlan in the first round, Yi Jianga against Yi Rulong in the second round, Wei Qingxian against Meng Haokong in the third round, Yi Weinan against Zhou Haoge in the fourth round, and Meng Yuanjun against Duan Xueqing in the fifth round. This round of battles ended very quickly. Other than the fierce battle between Yi Jianga and Yi Rulong, there was no suspense in the rest of the battles. In the first round, Yi Xing won and his light pillar of providence increased to 20 feet. In the second round, Yi Jianga and Yi Rulong exchanged more than 10 moves. In the end, Yi Jianga won and won. Currently, Yi Xing, Yi Jianga, and Wei Qingxuan's strength were about the same. It was hard to tell who was better. Yi Rulong lost to Wei Qingxian, so it was normal for him to lose to Yi Jianga. Yi Jianga's light pillar of providence also increased to 20 feet. In the third round, Wei Qingxian won. In the fourth round, Zhou Haoge won. His heavenly cycle Gang Qi was indeed not weak. There was only one reason for his previous defeat: his opponent was too strong. In the fifth round, Meng Yuanjun won. Wei Qingxian and Meng Yuanjun's light pillar of providence both increased to 20 feet. Like Yixing and Yi Jiange, they both maintained a 5-match winning streak. At this point in the battle for providence, the martial artists had a judgment of the strength of the 10 geniuses. Meng Yuanjun was undoubtedly the first. His strength far surpassed the other geniuses of the younger generation. In the eyes of the martial artists, Meng Yuanjun was the son of the stars. Below Meng Yuanjun, Yixing, Yi Jiange, and Wei Qingxuan's strength were hard to determine. They were in the same class. Their class was lower than Meng Yuanjun's, but higher than the other Venerable 9 Stars geniuses. Among the other 6 Venerable 9 Stars geniuses, Yi Rulong's strength was the strongest, followed by Meng Haokong and Meng Xinlan, the 2 descendants of the Meng royal family. After that, Zhou Haoge, Yi Weinan, and Duan Xueqing were in the same class. Among them, Zhou Haoge was more outstanding. Meng Yuanjun was undoubtedly the first. As for the other 6 Venerable 9 Stars geniuses, the martial artists were not very interested in who was stronger. What they were most interested in was the strength of Yixing, Yi Jiange, and Wei Qingxian. They wanted to know who was stronger and who was weaker. In the following battles, they looked forward to the battle between the 3 of them the most. Chapter 580. The Supreme King, Meng Tai, wasn't very interested in the strength of Yixing, Yi Jiange, and Wei Qingxian. What he wanted to see the most now was Yixing or Yi Jiange meet Meng Yuanjun. Then, Meng Yuanjun would directly kill them in the battle. The 5th round of battle begins. After an hour of rest, the voice in the void of the formation sounded again. This time, Yixing wasn't the first to go up. The 2 people who went up were Yi Rulong and Meng Haokong. The judgment of the cultivators was basically correct. Yi Rulong was the strongest person below Meng Yuanjun and the 3 8-star venerables. Meng Haokong lost this battle. The second round, Zhou Haoge against Duan Xueqing. The attraction of this battle to the cultivators was ordinary. However, the eyes of the cultivators suddenly lit up. In this round, Meng Yuanjun and the 3 8-star venerables didn't go up in the first 2 rounds. This meant that in the next 3 rounds, Meng Yuanjun and the 3 8-star venerables would have to meet 2 of them. It would either be Meng Yuanjun and one of the 3 8-star venerables, or 2 of the 3 8-star venerables. The former was what the Supreme King, Meng Tai, was looking forward to, and the latter was what all the cultivators were looking forward to. Soon, the second battle ended. Zhou Haoge won this battle. After the 2 left, the third cultivator went up. They were Yi Jiange and Yi Weinan. This was another battle without any suspense. However, the cultivators were very excited. In this round, there would definitely be a battle that would be very exciting. In just a few moves, Yi Weinan was defeated. Yi Jiange obtained 5 consecutive victories. Her luck light pillar was the first to grow to 75 feet. The 4th cultivator went up. Yixing was moved to the center of the array. He was surprised. His opponent was actually Wei Qingxian. The eyes of all the martial artists lit up and shone brightly. The battle that they had been waiting for was finally here. Who was stronger between the 2 8-star venerables? The Supreme King, Meng Tai, looked at the 2 people in the sky and frowned. He originally thought that Meng Yuanjun would face either Yixing or Yi Jiange in this round, but in the end, he didn't meet any of them. In the air, Yixing and Wei Qingxian looked at each other. Below them, in the eastern arena, the Blood Edge Empire's cultivators were all in high spirits, watching the 2 in the air. Yixing and Zixuan were in a relationship. This matter wasn't a secret in the Blood Edge Empire. Now that this pair of lovers met in the Heavenly Fate rankings, what would the result be? This battle would determine how much fate he would be able to obtain. The more fate he obtained, the better his future would be. Some of the younger generation of the Shui Feng Empire asked themselves, if they were in the same situation, no matter who the other party was, they would not give in. They would have to fight for the luck. After 2 breaths of time, the cultivators on the 5 stages all felt that something was amiss. In the previous battles, when the 2 went up on stage, they would either directly attack or exchange a few polite words. There was no one like Yixing and Wei Qingxian, who looked at each other in silence. Just as the cultivators were wondering, Wei Qingxian opened her mouth. Yixing, I wish you the best of luck in obtaining the first place on the Heavenly Fate rankings and becoming a son of the stars. When the cultivators heard this, they were all shocked. Yixing, the best of luck in obtaining the first place on the Heavenly Fate rankings and becoming a son of the stars. How was this possible? Not a single cultivator thought so. They all felt that Wei Qingxuan's words were too crazy. What did she mean by that? But in the next moment, the cultivators were even more shocked. Yixing nodded, I will. These 3 words were short and powerful. His tone was filled with determination. The cultivators were in a mess. Meng Yuanzhen's strength had already surpassed Yixing, Wei Qingxian, and Yi Jianga. No one could predict how strong he was, but one thing was for sure, it was absolutely terrifying. Although Yixing's strength was also heaven-defying, he was still a realm lower than Meng Yuanzhen's cultivation. The cultivators really didn't understand where Yixing got the confidence to say these 3 words. In the sky, the younger generation geniuses were also stunned by the conversation between Wei Qingxian and Yixing. As for Meng Yuanzhen, a terrifying light burst out from his eyes as he locked onto Yixing and coldly snorted. In the central stage, the Supreme King Meng Tai's gaze also locked onto Yixing. His eyes narrowed as killing intent surged. Meng Yuanzhen's strength was already so terrifying, but Yixing still had the confidence to compete for the first place on the Heavenly Fate rankings. It was obvious that Yixing still had a deep hidden trump card. Then, the identity of the Fiend Star of Chaos was on the verge of being revealed. Puff in the void of the array, Wei Qingxuan's aura shook. She suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and automatically admitted defeat. The cultivators felt that it was a pity. They wanted to see the battle between the 2 8-star masters, but they didn't expect that someone would voluntarily admit defeat. However, because of the conversation between Yixing and Wei Qingxian, the cultivators felt a sense of anticipation for the battle between Yixing and Meng Yuanzhen. Yixing definitely had a hidden trump card. Some cultivators couldn't help but wonder if Yixing had sealed his cultivation. Otherwise, how could he have the confidence to compete with Meng Yuanzhen for the title of Son of the Stars? The gazes of the cultivators gathered on Yixing. In their eyes, Yixing was a little mysterious. The void array wall separated Yixing and Wei Qingxian. Then, Wei Qingxuan's light pillar disappeared by 5 feet, shrinking to 25 feet. And Yixing's light pillar grew to 25 feet, just like Yi Jianga's. Yi Jianga's gaze turned towards Yixing. Her eyes were filled with fighting spirit. Yi Jianga also felt that Yixing was boasting shamelessly about competing for the title of Son of the Stars. To become the Son of the Stars, one must defeat Meng Yuanzhen. Although Yi Jianga was confident in her own strength, she didn't think that she was a match for Meng Yuanzhen. After all, he was only an 8-star master. If they were in the same realm, Yi Jianga was confident that she could fight against Meng Yuanzhen. Yixing was the same as Yi Jianga. They were both 8-star masters, but he had the confidence to compete with Meng Yuanzhen for the title of Son of the Stars. Yi Jianga couldn't see through this at all. Yi Jianga didn't have such strength, nor did she believe that Yixing had such strength. Yi Jianga had no chance of winning against Meng Yuanzhen, but she wasn't afraid of Yixing at all. She didn't think that she would lose to an opponent in the same realm. The 5th match of the 5th round was between Meng Yuanzhen and Meng Xinlan. Without a doubt, Meng Yuanjun won beautifully again. Her light pillar grew to 25 feet. At the end of the 5th round, only 3 people remained, Yi Xing, Yi Jianga, and Meng Yuanjun. After an hour of rest, the 6th round began. The first round was between Yi Rulong and Duan Xueqing. Yi Rulong won. The second round was between Meng Haokong and Meng Xinlan. Meng Haokong won. The third round was between Wei Qingxian and Zhou Haoge. Wei Qingxian won. The fourth round was between Yi Xing and Yi Weinan. Yi Xing won. After 6 consecutive victories, Yi Xing's light pillar grew to 25 feet. Continue to ask for monthly votes. It will explode tomorrow. Chapter 581. 6th round, 5th match. Yi Jianga vs Meng Yuanjun. Although this was a battle without suspense in the hearts of the cultivators, they were still in high spirits. Yi Jianga's strength was higher than Yi Rulong's, and Yi Rulong was defeated by Meng Yuanjun in 1 move. Then, how many moves could Yi Jianga take from Meng Yuanjun? Some guessed 5 moves, some guessed 8 moves, and some guessed 10 moves. At most, 10 moves. Basically, no one guessed more than 10 moves. The Supreme King Meng Tai looked at Yi Jianga in the sky calmly. At this time, he was sure that Yi Xing was the demon star of chaos, but he did not send a message to Meng Yuanjun to give up on killing Yi Jianga. Yi Jianga was born with a sword body. If he became a king in the future, he would be a threat to the great Yuan dynasty. If there was a chance to kill him, then kill him. In the void of the formation, Meng Yuanjun looked at Yi Jianga coldly and said, "I'll give you 3 breaths of time to erupt your strength to the strongest state. After 3 breaths, this prince will defeat you in 1 move, 1. Puff." Just as Meng Yuanjun counted to 1, Yi Jianga's aura suddenly shook, and he spat out a mouthful of blood. Yi Jianga automatically admitted defeat. He was born with a sword body, and his sword heart was bright. His reaction was extremely sharp, and he could see the killing intent in Meng Yuanjun's eyes. Meng Yuanjun had just shouted 1 when his figure flashed and disappeared. An extremely terrifying aura burst out. Meng Yuanjun gave Yi Jianga a fake signal to make a move after 3 breaths. Then, when he counted to 1, he suddenly made a move, bursting out with a thunderous blow. He wanted to kill Yi Jianga in 1 blow. Whoosh! When Meng Yuanjun attacked, a starlight soared into the sky. He used his astrology for the first time. It was an extreme metal-attributed astrology, and the golden light was extremely bright. Meng Yuanjun punched out, and the void exploded. Boom! Before Meng Yuanjun could get close to Yi Jianga, his fist suddenly exploded, and the light splashed in all directions. A deafening sound shook the sky. This peerlessly terrifying punch slammed into the void formation wall between the 2 of them. The moment Yi Jianga spat out blood, the Grand Starry Arena's array determined that he had failed. The void array wall instantly separated the 2 of them. Although Meng Yuanjun was strong, he could not shake the array formation of the Starry Sky Arena. Not to mention Meng Yuanjun, even his father, the Supreme King Meng Tai, could not shake it. Meng Yuanjun was shaken back. His arm was in pain. His eyes were like swords as he stared at Yi Jianga with murderous intent. Yi Jianga actually admitted defeat when he shouted 1, which was out of Meng Yuanjun's expectation. That was why Meng Yuanjun couldn't stop his punch in time when the void array wall appeared. "My apologies, Your Highness." Yi Jianga cupped his fists towards Meng Yuanjun. He thought that he was right. Meng Yuanjun did indeed have the intention to kill him. Yi Xing's fortune light pillar disappeared by 5 feet and turned into a stream of green light as it entered Meng Yuanjun's fortune light pillar. Meng Yuanjun's fortune light pillar was the same as Yi Xing's, it grew to 8 feet. At the end of the 6th round, only Yi Xing and Meng Yuanjun maintained their 6 consecutive victories. Their fortune light pillars were the highest and the color was the darkest. Another half an hour of rest was needed before the 7th round began. Meng Yuanjun returned to his original position and the Supreme King Meng Tai's voice rang in his ears. "Zhen He, you can't control yourself if you admit defeat. Don't worry about it. Yi Xing is the true demon star of chaos. If he fights with you for the first place on the destiny list, he won't admit defeat. At that time, don't give him a chance to live." Meng Yuanjun nodded slightly. The Supreme King Meng Tai could transmit his voice, but Meng Yuanjun couldn't. His cultivation was low, and his astral transmission would be heard by venerable experts. The 7th round begins now. The rest time passed quickly, and the voice in the array formation rang out on time. As the voice fell, 2 people were moved to the center of the array formation. They were Zhou Haoge and Meng Xinlan. Zhou Haoge's strength was not much different from Meng Xinlan's. The two exchanged more than 30 moves before the outcome was decided. Meng Xinlan won. The 2nd round, Meng Haokong vs Duan Xueqing. Meng Haokong won. The 3rd round, Yi Xing vs Yi Rulong. The martial artist's spirits rose by a lot. Yi Rulong was defeated by Wei Qingxian and Yi Jiange, 2 monstrous 8-star geniuses. In the eyes of the martial artists, he was naturally no match for Yi Xing. Not to mention, Yi Xing had declared that he would fight for the first place on the destiny list. His strength must be terrifying. Flying Dragon Spear Technique. Wind Shadow Spear Technique. Both of them were spear experts. Yi Rulong's spear was like a dragon, opening and closing wide with a heaven-shaking momentum. Yi Xing's spear was extremely fast, filling the sky with spear shadows. Using the Fire Star avatar, Yi Xing's strength erupted. The weakness of the Wind Shadow Spear technique was immediately made up for. Yi Xing's spear technique had reached perfection, much higher than Yi Rulong's. In less than 10 moves, Yi Rulong was defeated by Yi Xing. Yi Xing's beam of providence had grown to 85 feet. The 4th round of the 7th round, Wei Qingxian vs Yi Jiange. The martial artists' spirits were lifted, and their eyes were filled with excitement. They widened their eyes as they looked at Wei Qingxian and Yi Jiange in the sky. The battle between the 8-star geniuses had finally begun. Last time, Wei Qingxian and Yi Xing were both juniors of the East Divine Continent, so Wei Qingxian automatically admitted defeat. Now that the juniors of the East Divine Continent were facing the juniors of the North Netherworld Continent, there shouldn't be a situation where they automatically recognize each other, right? The martial artists were looking forward to the real battle between Wei Qingxian and Yi Jiange. "Miss Zixuan, you should admit defeat." In the sky, Yi Jiange's sword aura soared as she looked at Wei Qingxian and said indifferently. Seeing that Wei Qingxian automatically admitted defeat in front of Yi Xing, Yi Jiange thought that Wei Qingxian wasn't her opponent. The icicle sword appeared in Wei Qingxuan's hand, and her sword aura was also incomparably sharp. Whoosh! Wei Qingxian used the icy star, and the cold air was oppressive. She pointed her sword at Yi Jiange and said, "Make your move." What was her relationship with Yi Xing? What was her relationship with Yi Jiange? Even if she was facing Meng Yuanjun, Wei Qingxian wouldn't admit defeat, let alone Yi Jiange. Yi Jiange's gaze sharpened, and her sword aura exploded, becoming even more terrifying. At the same time, she used her astrology. A high-grade astrology could also increase one's strength by a lot. Although Yi Jiange made Wei Qingxian admit defeat, she still valued Wei Qingxuan's strength. Since Wei Qingxian was going all out, she had to go all out too. "Watch out for my sword," Yi Jiange shouted softly. As soon as she spoke, a sword light flashed. As soon as she finished speaking, she was already in front of Wei Qingxian. Wei Qingxian didn't even take half a step back. Her expression was calm as ice armor condensed around her body, and the cold air was oppressive. She waved her icicle sword, and an icy sword aura instantly shot out. It instantly froze Yi Jiange's sword aura, and then shattered it into ice shards. Wei Qingxian took a step forward, and ice lotuses appeared under her feet. She waved her sword, and instantly counterattacked. Streaks of icy sword aura shot out, freezing the void, and all of them were in front of Yi Jiange. Yi Jiange was born with the sword physique, and together with her sword aura, the power of her swordsmanship was extremely terrifying. Every sword attack was superb, and it destroyed the icy sword aura one by one. At first glance, the two of them seemed to be evenly matched. However, after the two of them exchanged 10 moves, Yi Jiange's heart was incomparably shocked, and he secretly complained. Wei Qingxuan's frosty ice sword force was too cold. Even though the frosty ice sword force was destroyed by Yi Jiange, the cold qi was still pervasive. As the cold qi in the air became more and more intense, a lot of it invaded his body. Yi Jiange was born with the sword physique, and his blood was strong. However, at this moment, he felt a cold air coming from his body, and it was about to affect the circulation of his astral energy. Whoosh! Yi Jiange's figure flashed, and he disappeared. Using the sword steps, he moved. Facing Wei Qingxuan's icy aura, Yi Jiange could only move to minimize the effect of the cold air. At the same time, the astral energy locked his body, preventing the cold air from continuing to invade his body. The sword aura in his body stirred, expelling the cold air that had invaded his body. Yi Jiange's movement speed was extremely fast. With a flash of his sword, he could appear anywhere around Wei Qingxian in the next moment. However, Wei Qingxuan's reaction speed was also extremely fast, and it was not inferior to Yi Jiange's. No matter where Yi Jiange's attack came from, she was always able to slash out her icy sword aura at the first moment, blocking the opponent's sword aura. Yi Jiange moved quickly around the void of the formation, bringing out a patch of sword light. Wei Qingxian only moved a small area in the middle of the formation, and streaks of icy sword aura shot out in all directions. As time passed, the cold air in the void of the formation became more and more intense. The icy sword aura left marks in the void, and it even froze a patch of space. The area where Yi Jiange moved became smaller and smaller. After 100 moves, the entire void of the formation turned into a patch of white light. Yi Jiange was finally unable to withstand the terrifying cold air, and he was defeated by Wei Qingxuan's sword. Chapter 582. The result was somewhat out of everyone's expectations. Because Wei Qingxian automatically admitted defeat in front of Yi Xing, everyone had the same thought as Wei Qingxian. They thought that Wei Qingxuan's strength shouldn't be very high and definitely couldn't be compared to Yi Xing. Therefore, she couldn't be compared to Yi Jiange. As for Yi Jiange, his previous battle results were very heaven-defying. His swordsmanship was divine and his attack power was very terrifying. At least 80% of the warriors thought that Yi Jiange would defeat Wei Qingxian. However, Yi Jiange's swordsmanship was completely restrained by Wei Qingxuan's cold aura. Moreover, the erase space was limited. If Yi Jiange couldn't quickly end the battle and defeat Wei Qingxian, then the cold aura in the erase space would become stronger and stronger, and his defeat would be a foregone conclusion. Yi Jiange suffered 2 consecutive defeats, and the light pillar of providence decreased to 65 feet. Wei Qingxian obtained Yi Jiange's 5 feet of providence, making up for the 5 feet of providence that she lost when she lost to Yi Xing. The light pillar of providence increased to 75 feet. The last match of the 7th round, Meng Yuanjun vs Yi Weinan. Meng Yuanjun won, and the light pillar of providence increased to 85 feet, neck and neck with Yi Xing. After an hour of rest, the 8th round of battles began. The battle for providence was divided into 9 rounds, and only 2 rounds were left. The warriors' spirits were lifted. Yixing vs Meng Yuanzhen, Yixing vs Yi Jianga, and Meng Yuanzhen vs Wei Qingxian had yet to begin. They would meet in the last 2 rounds. The first match of the 8th round, Yi Rulong vs Meng Xinlan, Yi Rulong won. The second match of the 8th round, Meng Haokong vs Zhou Haoge, Meng Haokong won. The third match of the 8th round, Duan Xueqing vs Yi Weinan, Yi Weinan won. The fourth match of the 8th round, Yixing vs Yi Jianga. The moment Yixing and Yi Jianga stepped onto the stage, all the martial artists were in high spirits. Their eyes shone brightly. It was yet another battle between 8-star masters and monstrous talents. In the 7th round of battle, Yi Jianga lost to Wei Qingxian, which greatly exceeded the expectations of the crowd. When Wei Qingxian fought against Yixing, she did not make a move and directly admitted defeat. No one knew whether Yixing's strength was better than Wei Qingxuan's. Therefore, it was hard for the crowd to predict the outcome of the battle between Yixing and Yi Jianga. They were most interested in such a battle. Your surname is also Yi, what a coincidence. Within the void of the formation, Yi Jianga's eyes were as sharp as swords as she stared at Yixing. There are a lot of people with the surname Yi in the top 10, even more than those with the surname Meng. Yixing said indifferently. His words caused the martial artists of the Meng royal clan to be enraged. Meng Yuanzhen stared at Yixing and clenched his fist, revealing a terrifying radiance. Even if Yixing wasn't the demon star of chaos, Meng Yuanzhen's heart was filled with killing intent. He wanted to kill Yixing. Yi Jianga did not expect Yixing to reply in such a way and was slightly stunned. Immediately after, Yi Jianga used her astrology and pointed her sword at Yixing. She said, "Miss Sichuan admits defeat to you. I hope your strength will not disappoint me." Yixing took out his dragon blood spear and used his extreme grade flame astrology. He said, "I will definitely not disappoint you. I will only make you despair. Watch out for my sword." Yi Jianga was angered by Yixing's words and her face turned green. She slashed her sword at Yixing. The dragon blood spear moved and blocked the opponent's sword. The dragon blood spear shook violently and Yixing was slightly surprised. Yi Jianga's attack power was indeed terrifying. In the previous round, Yi Jianga was defeated by Wei Qingxian because Wei Qingxuan's frost aura restrained him too much. It made it difficult for him to unleash 80% of the power of his swordsmanship. Now, when facing Yixing, Yi Jianga's swordsmanship was as strong as it could be. It was even possible for her to unleash more power than usual. Swish! 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 Yi Jianga's sword speed was extremely fast. Sword after sword, it was endless. However, speed was also Yixing's forte. As the dragon blood spear danced, the sword aura was destroyed one after another. Furthermore, the spear's shadows were everywhere. In the blink of an eye, Yixing counterattacked Yi Jianga. Yi Jianga used his sword steps and his figure flashed like a sword. Without the frost aura restricting his movements, he was simply like a ghost. Swish! 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 Yi Jianga attacked 10 times consecutively. Finally, Yixing's defense missed. The sword light pierced through the layers of spear aura and instantly arrived beside Yixing. Swish! Yixing's figure split and used his afterimage steps, causing Yi Jianga's attack to miss. Hee hee. Your movement technique is not bad. However, is this how you make me feel despair? Yi Jianga chuckled. She was still brooding over Yixing's words from before. As she spoke, Yi Jianga's sword speed did not decrease at all. The sword light trembled and split in an instant, chasing after Yixing's figure in all directions. On the stage below, the martial artists held their breaths. Yi Jianga's swordsmanship was indeed godly. In their opinion, Yixing was about to lose. Yixing's afterimages merged and the dragon blood spear swept across, destroying the incoming sword light. Using the super brain scanning function, Yixing understood his opponent's attack. Lose. At this moment, Yi Jiang's voice suddenly sounded from behind Yixing. Her sword light was like a meteor piercing through the air, piercing towards the back of Yixing's head. Yixing, lost. This thought appeared in the martial artists' minds. They treated Yixing's previous words as arrogant words. Boom! Just as the sword light was about to pierce Yixing, Yixing seemed to have eyes on the back of his head. He suddenly turned around and punched. A terrifying fist aura blasted onto the sword light. Supreme grade spiritual martial arts sky-burning sun fist. With a punch, Yixing's back was covered in flames like a sea of fire. The power of this punch could not be described with words that could topple mountains and overturn seas. The power of the sword aura was extremely strong, but it was instantly destroyed by Yixing's punch. The terrifying fist aura shot out and attacked Yi Jiang. Under the power of fire, the sky-burning sun fist was several times stronger than the wind shadow spear art. The fist aura instantly arrived in front of Yi Jiang with an unstoppable force. Yi Jiang was shocked. She held her supreme-grade spiritual treasure sword horizontally and performed a superb defensive swordsmanship. Even if it was an all-out attack from a half-step honorable realm expert, Yi Jiang could use this defensive swordsmanship to block it. However, the power of Yixing's punch was even more terrifying than an all-out attack from a half-step honorable realm expert. With an explosion, Yi Jiang's body was sent flying. Boom! Yixing punched out again. The fist aura broke through the speed of sound and exploded the void. It instantly caught up with Yi Jiang's retreating body. With an explosion, Yi Jiang was hung on the void wall by the fist aura. After 2 breaths, she slid down and spat out blood. In the arena below, all the cultivators were dumbfounded. How terrifying was the power of a punch to hang the opponent on the void wall? Wasn't this something that only Meng Yuanjun could do? How could Yixing do it too? Looking at the situation in the sky, Yixing's position in the hearts of the cultivators instantly rose. After witnessing the battle between Yixing and Yi Jiang, the cultivators had already placed Yixing and Meng Yuanjun on the same level. Although they still felt that Meng Yuanjun was more terrifying, the cultivators had at least considered the two of them to be on the same level. First, it was Meng Yuanjun, then Wei Qingxian, and then Yixing. Yi Jiang suffered 3 consecutive defeats. Her light pillar decreased again and again until it was only 6 feet tall. On the other hand, Yixing won all the way, and his light pillar grew to 9 feet. The light pillar's green color was extremely deep. Whether it was the younger geniuses or the cultivators, they all looked at Yixing with envy. As an 8-star venerable, Yixing's strength was so powerful that it shocked the cultivators. They had never seen such a powerful 8-star venerable. Yixing and Yi Jiang left the arena. The last group of the 8th round went up. Meng Yuanjun against Wei Qingxian. Wei Qingxian was as beautiful as a fairy and had defeated Yi Jiang. Now that she was facing Meng Yuanjun, the cultivators were in high spirits. They were very interested in this battle. No one knew how strong Meng Yuanjun was. Now, Meng Yuanjun had only revealed the tip of the iceberg. The cultivators were looking forward to the fight between Meng Yuanjun and Wei Qingxian. Perhaps Meng Yuanjun would reveal more of his strength. You, like Yi Jiang, do you want to admit defeat directly? In the void of the array, Meng Yuanjun stood with his hands behind his back and looked at Wei Qingxian confidently. You are not qualified for me to admit defeat directly. Wei Qingxian shook her head. She wanted to help Yixing test Meng Yuanjun's strength. How could she admit defeat? Not qualified. Wei Qingxian admitted defeat directly in front of Yixing, but said that Meng Yuanjun was not qualified for her to admit defeat directly. Didn't this mean that he, Meng Yuanjun, was inferior to Yixing? Meng Yuanjin's face suddenly showed anger. Then I'll let you know whether I'm qualified or not. Meng Yuanjin shouted, and his aura erupted. The surrounding void airflow suddenly exploded and rotated around Meng Yuanjin. Wei Qingxian took out the icicle sword, and a starlight soared into the sky. She used the cold ice star aspect and erupted her strength to the strongest state. You're defeated. Meng Yuanjin shouted and punched out. The void in front of him exploded, and a huge fist instantly blasted in front of Wei Qingxian. Ice seal. Wei Qingxian waved her sword to resist. The icicle sword carried an ice sword aura, and instantly blocked the fist aura. Bang! With a loud explosion, the ice sword aura on the icicle sword shattered layer by layer. However, Meng Yuanjin's fist aura was blocked, and the ice on the icicle sword did not shatter completely. The cold ice star aspect poured down a huge amount of cold ice star power, causing the ice on the icicle sword to grow rapidly while being destroyed by the fist aura, maintaining the extremely cold momentum. All the cultivators sucked in a breath of cold air. Meng Yuanjin's fist was blocked. This was the first time. Whoosh! Meng Yuanjin was furious, and a starlight soared into the sky. Using the celestial aspect, the golden light was dazzling. Metal star power fell, and Meng Yuanjin was like a golden god of war, and his strength soared rapidly. Take another punch from this prince. Meng Yuanjin shouted and blasted out a fist. The golden fist aura was incomparably bright, and the entire array formation was illuminated in gold. All the cultivators were shocked. This punch was too terrifying. Even a half-step venerable would be in danger of death when facing this punch. Chapter 583. Previously, when Meng Yuanjin wanted to kill Yi Jianga, he used astrology to throw out such a punch. In Meng Yuanjin's view, the power of this punch was enough to take Yi Jianga's life. It could be seen how powerful it was. The speed of Meng Yuanjin's punch was extremely fast, and there was no way to dodge it. Ice Sword Shield. Wei Qingxian shouted, and the ice aura crazily erupted, her strength erupting to the limit. The ice armor outside Wei Qingxuan's body continued to grow ice, becoming thicker and thicker. The icicle sword was also completely covered by ice, like an ice shield in front of her. Boom! Meng Yuanjin's punch had just been thrown out when there was an explosion, and the fist collided with the ice sword shield. In an instant, ice shards flew in all directions, and the ice sword shield was shattered in an instant. Even the ice armor outside Wei Qingxuan's body collapsed layer by layer. In an instant, Wei Qingxuan's body flew backward. Puff! Wei Qingxian hit the void array wall and spat out a mouthful of blood. The array sensed that Wei Qingxian spat out blood, and judged that Wei Qingxian had lost this battle. A void array wall appeared, separating Wei Qingxian and Meng Yuanjin. The cultivators looked at Meng Yuanjin in the sky, and they were all shocked. His strength was too terrifying, and it was hard to imagine that anyone below the venerable realm could compete with him. At this moment, the cultivators were even more pessimistic about Yixing. However, no one knew that Wei Qingxian was injured and spat out blood. The blood in her body shook, and a surge of power gushed out from the depths of her bloodline. This power was too powerful. Wei Qingxian believed that if there was no void array wall between her and Meng Yuanjin, the terrifying power from the depths of her bloodline would be more than enough to kill Meng Yuanjin. However, the Starry Sky Arena had its own judgment of victory and defeat. Wei Qingxian spat out blood, which meant that she had lost. This battle was over, and there was no chance to restart. Wei Qingxuan's light pillar of providence disappeared by 5 feet and was reduced to 70 feet. Meng Yuanjin's light pillar of providence absorbed the blue gas and grew to 90 feet. The 8th round of battles ended. Yixing and Meng Yuanjin still maintained their winning streaks. Both of their light pillars were 90 feet tall. As for who would be able to obtain 95 feet of light pillars and become the son of the stars, the answer would be revealed in the final round of battles. The battle between Yixing, Yi Jianga, and Wei Qingxian had already ended. Yi Jianga and Wei Qingxian had also fought with Meng Yuanjun. In the last round, the only battle that the martial artists were looking forward to the most was the battle between Yixing and Meng Yuanjun. The 9th round begins now. After an hour of rest, the voice in the void of the formation rang out on time. Yi Rulong and Zhou Haoge went up first. After 10 moves, Yi Rulong won. Yi Rulong, 5 wins and 4 losses. His light pillar of Providence finally stopped at 55 feet, which was 5 feet higher than the initial height of Providence. Zhou Haoge, 2 wins and 7 losses. His light pillar of Providence finally stopped at 25 feet. The second battle of the 9th round was between Meng Xinlan and Duan Xueqing. Meng Xinlan won. Meng Xinlan, 3 wins and 6 losses. Her light pillar of Providence finally stopped at 35 feet. Duan Xueqing, 9 losses. Her light pillar of Providence finally stopped at 5 feet. The third battle of the 9th round was between Meng Haokong and Yi Jianga. Yi Jianga won. Meng Haokong, 4 wins and 5 losses. His light pillar of Providence finally stopped at 45 feet. Yi Jianga, 6 wins and 3 losses. Her light pillar of Providence finally stopped at 65 feet. The fourth battle of the 9th round was between Wei Qingxian and Yi Weinan. Wei Qingxian won. Wei Qingxian, 7 wins and 2 losses. Her light pillar of Providence finally stopped at 75 feet. Yi Weinan, 1 win and 8 losses. His light pillar of Providence finally stopped at 15 feet. The 9th round was between Yixing and Meng Yuanjun. In the last round, the last battle that all the cultivators had been waiting for finally arrived. It was also the battle to determine the son of the stars. All the cultivators widened their eyes and stared at Yixing and Meng Yuanjun in the sky, afraid that they would miss a moment. The higher-ups of the Deyuan dynasty were also paying attention to this battle in high spirits. Yixing's identity as the fiend star of troubled times had been confirmed. Now, all they had to do was wait for Meng Yuanjun to eliminate this fiend star of troubled times. In the void of the array, Yixing and Meng Yuanjun stood facing each other. Meng Yuanjun's eyes were as sharp as knives as he stared at Yixing. Since you want to become the son of the stars, it seems that you won't take the initiative to admit defeat. Since I'm here, of course I want to become the son of the stars. Otherwise, it would be a wasted trip. Yixing nodded and said, even if you want to kill me, I will never admit defeat. Ha ha ha. Meng Yuanjun laughed and said, that's right. This prince wants to kill you. Die. As soon as he finished speaking, Meng Yuanjun used his astrology and his strength erupted as he threw a punch. As soon as he attacked, it was a thunderous blow. Yixing also drew on his astrology and unleashed the heaven-burning sun fist, unleashing his full strength to meet the attack head-on. Boom! The two fists collided, and astral currents burst out, blooming with dazzling light. Meng Yuanjun's figure was like a mountain, while Yixing took several steps back. Meng Yuanjun's cultivation had reached the peak of the 9th level of the astral star realm, and his astral energy had been strengthened to the limit of the astral star realm. He was no different from a half-step venerable, but he could not communicate with the power of the universe. In terms of martial arts attainments, Meng Yuanjun's Overlord Mountain-splitting fist was also in the transformation realm, not inferior to Yixing. His comprehension of the momentum of heaven and earth was slightly inferior to Yixing's, but he was not far from becoming one with the world. Overall, Yixing had the advantage in terms of comprehension of the momentum of heaven and earth, so he could make up for the gap in cultivation. However, there were differences in power between martial arts of the same level. The Overlord Mountain-splitting fist was the ultimate technique of the Great Yuan dynasty. Its power belonged to the first grade among the supreme grade spiritual martial arts. Although the Great Sun Burning Sky Fist was also very powerful, it was only an ultimate technique collected by a two-star force like the Bloody Edge Empire. It was slightly inferior to the Overlord Mountain Splitting Fist. Therefore, Yi Xing was at a disadvantage in the first exchange of blows. However, this was enough to shock the martial artists. Wei Qingxian was injured by Meng Yuanjin's punch and was defeated directly. "It's really you," Meng Yuanjin shouted coldly. Yi Xing's combat power was so abnormal, he was 100% sure that he was the demon star of chaos. "Your strength is indeed much stronger than the other two, but in front of me, Meng Yuanjin, you will still die." As Meng Yuanjin shouted, his aura erupted again. Obviously, he was not in his strongest state just now. As soon as he finished speaking, Meng Yuanjin used the ultimate technique of the Overlord Mountain Splitting Fist and attacked Yi Xing fiercely. The fist aura directly hit Yi Xing's head, attacking the vital part. If Yi Xing's head was hit by the fist, even if his body was strong and would not explode like a watermelon, his bones would definitely shatter and he would die. Great Sun Burning Sky Fist. The flame celestial aspect poured down endless star power, and the power of fire completely erupted. Yi Xing punched out, like a needle against an awl, towards Meng Yuanjin. Chapter 584. Asterisk boom 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 boom, asterisk both of their fists were extremely terrifying. When they collided, it was like a series of big explosions. Continuous explosive sounds rang out, and astral light shot out in all directions. In terms of the power of his fist technique, Yi Xing was indeed inferior to Meng Yuanjin. However, Yi Xing's physical body was extremely powerful. Just his physical strength alone was comparable to the strength of a half-step venerable. His physical endurance was much stronger than other martial artists. Even if he was at a disadvantage, it was not easy for Meng Yuanjin to injure Yi Xing with just his fist energy. In the void of the formation, there were continuous explosions and radiance. Many martial artists could not see the situation inside clearly. They only knew that the battle between the two was extremely fierce from the sounds. Not long after, the two had exchanged dozens of moves. Under Meng Yuanjin's attack, Yi Xing was forced to retreat again and again. He had already circled the void of the formation. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk suddenly, Yi Xing's figure split as he used the after-image footwork. The after-image footwork of the transformative stage, coupled with the wind momentum of the oneness of heaven and man, was extremely fast. The dragon blood spear instantly appeared in Yi Xing's hand. The wind shadow spear technique was also focused on speed, so it was more compatible with the after-image footwork. Yi Xing's figure was like lightning, and his spear was as fast as light. At the same time, the super brain activated its scanning function to find Meng Yuanjin's flaws and launched a storm of attacks. Meng Yuanjin was caught off guard by Yi Xing's sudden change in fighting style. For a moment, Yi Xing actually reversed the situation. Could it be that Yi Xing really has the possibility of becoming a son of the stars? Looking at the battle in the sky, all the martial artists were shocked. Yi Xing's strength was beyond their expectations. They had never seen or even heard of such a powerful 8-star venerable master. The supreme king of Deyuan, Meng Tai, narrowed his eyes. The killing intent in his eyes grew stronger and stronger. The more monstrous Yi Xing was, the greater the threat he posed to the Deyuan dynasty. The more he wanted to kill Yi Xing. Although the battle between Yi Xing and Meng Yuanjin was in a balanced state, the Supreme King Meng Tai was still confident that Meng Yuanjin could kill Yi Xing. For the sake of this year's genius selection, the Great Yuan dynasty had prepared a foolproof plan. Meng Yuanjin's attack rhythm was disrupted by Yi Xing's sudden counterattack. In fact, Yi Xing's spear technique was like a god. Several spears came from angles that he could not block, making him somewhat flustered. This made Meng Yuanjun very angry. Yixing, you are indeed very powerful and can fight against me. However, even so, you will still die. Meng Yuanjun suddenly roared. A resplendent spear light suddenly shot out without any warning. As soon as this spear light appeared, all the martial artists below the astral reaching realm felt their hearts tremble. They felt a fatal danger from this spear light. Even half-step venerables were no exception. Even some low-level astral reaching realm venerables were surprised. This spear light could already threaten their lives. When this spear light erupted, it was very small, like a flash of golden light. However, in the blink of an eye, it became long and large, turning into a huge golden spear. It instantly pierced towards the end of the formation. Wherever the spear light passed, Yixing's spear shadows were instantly destroyed. Whoosh! Yixing pushed his afterimage footwork to the limit. His figure flickered like a stream of light, narrowly avoiding the spear. Even so, Yixing felt a burning pain on his body. His skin even ruptured in many places, and blood flowed out. Mysterious weapon. Yixing cried out in alarm. Weapons were divided into mortal grade, spirit grade, mysterious grade, divine grade. Spirit weapons were generally used by martial saints and Taoists. Mysterious weapons were used by venerables and kings. Divine weapons were naturally used by quasi-gods and true gods. Mysterious weapons were very powerful. If one wasn't an astral reaching realm venerable, it would be hard to control them. One would need a venerable's astral wind to control them freely. Even half-step venerables, who understood the surface of communicating with the power of the universe, couldn't use mysterious weapons. This was because the astral wind of half-step venerables was not on the same level as the astral wind of venerables. In order to break through to the astral reaching realm from the astral wind realm, one had to go through the baptism of the thunder tribulation. After going through the tribulation, both the physical body and the astral wind would be reborn. Only the astral wind that had gone through the tribulation could control mysterious weapons. Once mysterious weapons were used, they would automatically communicate with the power of the universe. In other words, all kinds of yuan qi existed in the void. That spear light just now had triggered the metal yuan qi in the void. Its destructive power was astonishing. Even if Yixing wasn't directly pierced by the spear light, he was still injured by the surrounding metal yuan qi. It's a mysterious weapon. Meng Yuanjun is only a venerable 9-star. How can he control a mysterious weapon? How frightening is a mysterious weapon's power? Even venerables would be in danger if they were hit by it. How can they fight it? After a brief moment of shock, all the martial artists cried out in alarm. If it were a venerable 9-star from a 2-star faction, he definitely wouldn't be able to control a mysterious weapon. However, a venerable 9-star from a 3-star faction might be able to. An experienced and knowledgeable martial artist said. Why? Immediately, a martial artist asked. If an expert can plant an astral star seed in a venerable 9-star's body, and if the astral reaching realm is high enough, he can control a mysterious weapon before reaching the astral reaching realm. What kind of expert can do that? A venerable wouldn't be able to control a mysterious weapon with just an astral star seed. Only a king would be able to do that. However, even a king would have to spend a lot of effort and energy to plant such a high-quality astral star seed in a venerable 9-star's body. Hearing this, all the martial artists suddenly realized that Meng Yuanjun could use a mysterious weapon because he was a king. This was indeed something that only a 3-star faction with a king could do. Although it was very unfair to use such a method in the battle for luck, who would dare to criticize the great Meng imperial family? Moreover, the battle between Yixing and Meng Yuanjun was no longer just a battle for luck. Meng Yuanjun wanted to take Yixing's life. At this time, there was no need to talk about fairness. Meng Yuanjun's only goal was to kill Yixing. With the golden rock spear in hand, Meng Yuanzhen's aura was extremely frightening, just like a venerable. Die for me. Meng Yuanzhen didn't give Yixing the chance to vomit blood and admit defeat. In an instant, he let out a loud roar and attacked Yixing with his spear. Just the metal yuan qi driven by the golden rock spear was enough to injure Yixing's body. If the golden rock spear directly pierced Yixing, even if Yixing's body was tough, it would probably instantly shatter into pieces. Whoosh! While Yixing used the afterimage footwork to dodge, a starlight rushed out from between his eyebrows and turned into a huge black hole vortex. The power of a mysterious weapon was too terrifying. If Meng Yuanzhen continued to attack, Yixing wouldn't be able to dodge more than a few spears. Therefore, he decisively used the black hole astrology. At the same time, a set of black skeleton armor appeared outside Yixing's body and covered his whole body. It was the red flame suit. Although the red flame suit couldn't block the attack of the golden rock spear, it was more than enough to defend against the attack of the metal yuan qi in the void. Chapter 585. Yixing's figure split and dodged the dark weapon golden rock spear's spear aura. The metal yuan qi in the void cut the crimson flame armor set but failed to damage it. After dodging the spear, Yixing stopped and retracted his aura. He looked at Meng Yuanzhen from afar with calm eyes. At this moment, Meng Yuanzhen's face was filled with shock. He had fallen into a world of darkness where he couldn't even see his fingers. Even though his metal constellation was originally shining with golden light, there was no light in this dark world. The most important thing was that Meng Yuanzhen had lost his sense of Yixing. In this dark world, Meng Yuanzhen didn't even know where Yixing was. This feeling was extremely uncomfortable. The golden rock spear was in a defensive posture. Meng Yuanzhen vigilantly watched the movements around him. After a moment of surprise, his expression turned grim. The martial artists below were also extremely shocked. They looked at the black hole constellation and flame constellation above Yixing and were almost stunned. They couldn't recognize the black hole constellation, but Yixing had two constellations, which made them extremely shocked. The senior martial artists present were all peak figures from all over the star continent. Their knowledge was much broader than ordinary martial artists. It wasn't to the extent that they had never heard of dual constellations. However, they were still shocked because the double celestial phenomenon only existed in some ancient books, and those ancient books were more than 100,000 years old. In the present world, and even in the past 100,000 years, there had never been a martial artist with dual constellations in the star continent. Dual constellations that only existed in ancient times. What kind of monstrous existence was this? It actually appeared in the present world. How could the martial artists not be shocked when they looked at Yixing? Even the upper echelons of the Great Yuan dynasty, even the kings, had a change of expression at this moment. Dual constellations, this was a legendary monstrous existence. No wonder Si Kongyan said that the demon star could destroy the foundation of the Great Yuan dynasty. In the past, the experts of the Great Yuan dynasty found it hard to believe, but now they were 100% convinced. Looking at Yixing and Meng Yuanzhen in the sky, the kings of the Great Yuan dynasty were a little nervous. The result of this battle had begun to deviate from their expectations. Yixing, what sorcery are you using? If you have the ability, fight me face to face. Meng Yuanzhen shouted with a depressed expression. Right now, he didn't even know where Yixing was. How could he fight? Aren't we fighting fair and square right now? Yixing spoke. Using the astral star voice, the sound waves rolled out, filling the entire array formation space with Yixing's voice, making it impossible for Meng Yuanzhen to determine his position based on his voice alone. Come out! Meng Yuanzhen bellowed as the profound weapon in his hand, the golden rock spear, blossomed with light as he thrust it forward. However, this spear pierced the air. it was still a little far from Yixing. The warriors below were not affected by the black hole astrology and did not know that Meng Yuanjun was now in the dark world. Now that they saw Meng Yuanjun's random attack, they realized that Meng Yuanjun could not see Yixing's position. They were all surprised. Meng Yuanjun did not withdraw his spear but swept it out. In the blink of an eye, the resplendent astral spear swept a full circle and swept through the entire array formation space. However, Yixing just jumped up and avoided the attack of the astral spear. As long as the astral spear did not hit Yixing, the metal elemental energy could not break the defense of the red flame suit and posed no threat to Yixing. Come out! Come out! Meng Yuanjun shouted again and again as the golden rock spear shot out again and again without any purpose. Yixing's figure was like a ghost, appearing and disappearing unpredictably, easily avoiding the opponent's attacks. Front left, 500 steps. Meng Yuanjun suddenly heard the voice of the Supreme King Meng Tai. Die for me! Meng Yuanjun roared as the golden rock spear shot out with a resplendent astral light. Although he did not know Yixing's exact location, Meng Yuanjun's spear covered the void in front of him. As long as Yixing was within this range, it would be fatal if he was hit. The golden rock spear was a dark weapon. Even a venerable could not withstand its attack. If Yixing was hit, of course, it would not bode well for him. However, Yixing's speed was too fast. His figure flashed and dodged the spear. Back, 600 steps. Back left, 530 steps. Front right, 770 steps. The voice of the Supreme King Meng Tai kept ringing in Meng Yuanjun's ears. As a king, he naturally saw Yixing's figure clearly. However, Meng Yuanjun identified Yixing's position through sound, which was a little slower than directly seeing Yixing's position. This little time difference was enough for Yixing to avoid Meng Yuanjun's attack. Be careful behind you! Suddenly, the Supreme King Meng Tai shouted, no longer caring about the true Yuan sound transmission. Yixing suddenly launched a counterattack. The wind shadow spear art was displayed under the black hole astral form. It was even more difficult to detect, and its speed was also brought back to an unpredictably high level. By the time Meng Tai's voice sounded, it was too late. The astral spear had already pierced Meng Yuanjun's back. Asterisk ding 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 ding, asterisk crisp sounds rang out again and again as sparks flew. A set of armor suddenly appeared outside Meng Yuanjun's body, blocking the astral spear. Then, the astral spear swept out. The armor outside Meng Yuanjun's body was the same as Yixing's Scarlet Flame set. It was a top-grade spirit artifact set with extremely strong defensive power. If Yixing's attack had completely hit Meng Yuanjun's body, it might have injured Meng Yuanjun, but it would be difficult for the astral spear to penetrate the defense of a top-grade spirit artifact set. After all, the defense of a set was much higher than that of a single defensive spirit artifact. A strike from a half-step venerable could be easily blocked by a spirit-level top-grade defensive inner armor, but even a venerable would find it difficult to break the defense of a top-grade spirit artifact set. Meng Yuanjun's reaction was very fast. The golden rock spear swept out. Yixing had no time to completely blast the power of this move on Meng Yuanjun's body. His figure flashed and disappeared. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk in an instant, Yixing changed his position and attacked Meng Yuanjun with his astral spear. Watch out for the right. The Supreme King Meng Tai's voice sounded instantly. Meng Yuanjun heard the voice and immediately attacked to the right. Yixing's astral spear had just touched the top-grade spirit artifact set outside Meng Yuanjun's body when he had no choice but to dodge again and give up this attack. Asterisk whoosh whoosh whoosh. Asterisk Yixing's attack speed was very fast, and his figure was erratic, appearing and disappearing like a ghost. The astral spear stabbed out was impossible to guard against. However, with the Supreme King Meng Tai's reminder, Meng Yuanjun was always able to know Yixing's attack at the first moment and launch a counterattack, so that Yixing's attack could not completely land on him. As for the collision of the astral spear, no matter where the attack was, it could not break the top-grade spirit artifact set outside Meng Yuanjun's body. For a time, Meng Yuanjun seemed to be in an invincible position. Chapter 586. The battle reached a stalemate. Although Meng Yuanjun was in an invincible position, Yixing's speed was too fast. Even if Meng Yuanjun had the Supreme King Meng Tai's voice to warn him, it was still difficult for him to attack Yixing. As a result, it was easy to determine the outcome of this battle, but it was very difficult to determine life and death. Both of them had a set of top-grade spirit artifacts. Even a true venerable would find it difficult to kill them in one blow. Who will win this battle? A martial artist couldn't help but ask. The dark weapon is powerful, but it also consumes a lot of energy. If the battle continues for a long time, Meng Yuanjun will consume too much energy and I'm afraid he will be defeated. Indeed, but the dark weapon communicates with the power of the universe and draws in more and more metal yuan qi. Meng Yuanjun's attacks are getting stronger and stronger, leaving Yixing with less space. I'm afraid Yixing won't be able to hold on until Meng Yuanjun consumes too much energy. In that case, Meng Yuanjun has a higher chance of winning. It should be so. It's not that Yixing isn't strong enough, but that the dark weapon is too powerful. What a pity. In the various arenas, the martial artists were discussing. Meng Yuanjun's strength was already very strong. Under the Venerable Realm, he could be said to be invincible. Now, with the dark weapon Golden Rock Spear, his attack power had increased to the Venerable Realm. Although Yixing's strength was not inferior to Meng Yuanjun's, he could not resist the attack of the Golden Rock Spear. No wonder all the martial artists felt pity for him and thought that Meng Yuanjun would win. The martial artists in the surrounding arenas felt pity, and so did the upper echelons of the great Meng royal family. They felt pity that Meng Yuanjun could not kill Yixing in one blow. Even if Meng Yuanjun won this time, Yixing, the demon star, would still exist in this chaotic world. Meng Tai, the Supreme King, revealed a fierce killing intent in his eyes. When the genius election was over and the martial artists returned to the Star Continent, he would kill Yixing. After dozens of breaths, Yixing had attacked Meng Yuanjun with hundreds of moves, but none of them were effective. Meng Yuanjun, who had been warned by the Supreme King, Meng Tai, had blocked them all. As the Golden Rock Spear struck out again and again, more and more metal yuan qi was attracted. The formation was covered with a layer of golden light, which was extremely sharp. It flowed along with the Golden Rock Spear and contained a terrifying power. The void of the formation was a sealed space. The metal elemental energy gathered and did not disperse. Naturally, the more it gathered, the more unfavorable the situation became for Yixing. Seeing that the range of the Golden Rock Spear was getting wider and wider, Yixing's eyes flashed. Whoosh! Yixing used the Sagittarius constellation, and the weapon in his hand changed from the Blood Dragon Spear to the Big Dipper Bow. Yixing's strongest attack wasn't the Great Sun-Burning Sky Fist or the Wind Shadow Spear art, but his archery. Arrows moved at high speed and had extremely strong penetrating power. It was the easiest to break through all kinds of defensive artifacts. Yixing had only planned to reveal the Black Hole constellation, not the Sagittarius constellation. This was because no one knew about the Black Hole constellation, and even if they saw it, they wouldn't be able to understand its mysteries. However, the Sagittarius constellation could be seen with a single glance. However, at this point, Yixing couldn't care less about revealing the Sagittarius constellation. He had to obtain the Sun of the Stars. Moreover, Meng Yuanjun knew the mysteries of the Black Hole constellation. Yixing didn't want him to live any longer. If he wanted to kill Meng Yuanjun, who had a set of top-grade spirit artifacts, then he could only rely on his archery skills. As soon as the Sagittarius constellation appeared, the martial artists were shocked and cried out in alarm. Another constellation. Heavens, Yixing actually has 3 constellations. Even in the ancient records, there are only 2 types of astrology. How can there be 3 types of astrology? This astrology, could it be the legendary Sagittarius astrology? The constellation astrology is the highest astrology in the legends. This kind of astrology only exists in legends. 3 constellations gathered in one body, and there is even the legendary Sagittarius constellation. This is too monstrous. The martial artists did not understand the terror of the black hole astrology, but they were very clear about the constellation astrology. They knew that it was the supreme existence of the constellation astrology, and it only existed in legends. In the central arena, Paramount King Meng Tai stared at Yixing. Imperial advisor Si Kongyan had said before that the demon star of chaos was related to archery. Clearly, archery was Yixing's greatest strength. Yixing used the afterimage footwork, and his figure was like lightning. His hands instantly pulled the Big Dipper bow. The gems on the Big Dipper bow shone brightly and condensed into an arrow of starlight. Hu Yixing's aura suddenly exploded. His astral energy revolved to the limit, as if it was burning, and he displayed 120% of his strength. At the same time, the grand momentum of fire, grand momentum of wind, and grand momentum of darkness were used and gathered on the Big Dipper bow. The flame constellation poured down endless fire star force, covering the Big Dipper bow and the arrow of starlight with a layer of fire. The star force of the Sagittarius constellation directly acted on the arrow of starlight, causing it to shine brightly and its power to multiply. Die for me. Yixing let out a loud roar and unleashed the power of the 6 transformations of heart, unleashing the most powerful arrow technique of the black flame arrow technique. Whoosh! 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 In an instant, Yixing drew the bow 3 times in a row. Each time, he pulled the Big Dipper bow to a full moon and released the most powerful arrow. The 3 arrows of starlight flashed like meteors, forming a line and shooting towards Meng Yuanjin's head. Front left. Front right. Straight ahead. Supreme King Meng Tai's warning to Meng Yuanjin immediately sounded. However, as soon as he finished speaking, the 3 arrows of starlight abruptly changed directions in midair, forcing him to warn Meng Yuanjin again. In the blink of an eye, the Supreme King Meng Tai shouted 6 times in a row, and he saw the 6 changes of direction of the arrows of starlight clearly. However, when these prompts fell into Meng Yuanjin's ears, it caused Meng Yuanjin's astral energy to become chaotic. He was operating his astral energy to attack the front left, but the Supreme King Meng Tai's voice changed. He had to suppress this impulse and prepare to attack the front right. However, the front right was wrong again, and he had to change directions again. In the blink of an eye, Meng Yuanjin's astral energy had been stirred up 6 times in his body. The disordered astral energy clashed in his body, and he almost vomited blood. When the Supreme King Meng Tai's last reminder sounded, the arrows of starlight had already hit Meng Yuanjin's helmet. He had no time to block with his golden rock spear. Clang! Clang! Puff! The 3 arrows of starlight all hit Meng Yuanjin's ultra-grade spiritual equipment set. The first 2 arrows made a clear sound, and sparks flew. The arrows of starlight were also shattered. The 3rd sound contained the sound of shattering and penetrating. The arrows of starlight pierced through the ultra-grade spiritual equipment set's helmet, and shot into Meng Yuanjin's head. Chapter 587. The defensive power of a supreme-grade spiritual armor was so strong that even a venerable would find it difficult to break it in one hit. However, the 3 starlight arrows hit the same point and pierced through the helmet. Yixing's attainments in the art of archery were unfathomable. His heart's 6 transformations and heart's force was at the 6th level. Even an ordinary honored realm expert would not be able to reach such a level. In addition, Yixing's black flame arrow technique had reached the perfection realm, coupled with Yixing's almost burning star energy, as well as the convergence of various forces of heaven and earth. The most important thing was the star power of the flame astrology and the Sagittarius astrology, especially the star power of the Sagittarius astrology, which raised the power of the arrows to a whole new level. It could be said that the power of the starlight arrows was no less than an ordinary venerable's full-strength attack. 3 starlight arrows were equivalent to 3 full-strength attacks of a venerable. 3 full-strength attacks of a venerable, and all at the same point. It was naturally no problem to break the defense of a supreme-grade spiritual armor. The starlight arrows shot into the helmet and did not stop until they reached the other side of the helmet, which meant that they had penetrated Meng Yuanjin's entire head. A shrill scream rang out in an instant. The terrifying power contained in the starlight arrow blasted Meng Yuanjin's body backward, and then slammed into the void formation wall behind him. When Meng Yuanjin fell down, he was lying straight on the ground and breathed his last. Without the destruction of the star energy, the supreme-grade spiritual armor around Meng Yuanjin's body suddenly disappeared and automatically returned to his storage ring. The starlight arrows contained supreme power. If Yixing did not withdraw them for a while, they would not dissipate for dozens of breaths and still stay on Meng Yuanjin's head. Now that the supreme-grade spiritual armor had disappeared, it could be seen that the arrow had hit Meng Yuanjin's forehead. No wonder he was killed instantly. The Supreme King Meng Tai let out a furious roar, his killing intent surging like a tide. Yixing, I will slaughter your entire family. The rest of the martial artists were all stunned at this moment. They looked at Meng Yuanjin's corpse in the sky and could not believe it. Meng Yuanjin, with a dark weapon in his hand and a supreme-grade spiritual armor, died in the hands of an 8-star venerable. I can't figure it out. None of the martial artists could figure this out. They couldn't believe this result. Paramount King Meng Tai's voice awakened all the martial artists from their shock. Only now did they believe that Meng Yuanjin was truly dead. No one doubted that Paramount King Meng Tai had made a mistake. At this moment, High Lord Netherflame and the other North Netherworld Continent martial practitioners looked at High Lord Imogen and the other Blood Edge Empire martial practitioners with gloating expressions. So what if he was number 1 on the Heavenly Fate rankings? So what if he was a son of the stars? If the Great Yuan dynasty wanted someone dead, there would be no place to hide in the entire Starland. The result would be certain death. But to High Lord Netherflame's disappointment, High Lord Imogen's expression was filled with shock at the fact that Yixing had become a son of the stars. As for fear, there was none. In the void of the formation, Meng Yuanjin died. The 90-meter-long providence that enveloped him completely disappeared, turning into a green light that merged into Yixing's pillar of providence. Yixing's pillar of providence instantly grew from 90-meter long to 30-meter long, and its color was so green that it was almost blue. 100-meter-long providence was so green that it was almost blue. This was the highest providence of the Starland. With some providence attached to one's body, it meant that a martial practitioner could become a supreme expert of the Starland. Of course, the prerequisite was that one could live until that day. In the history of the Starland, there were many experts who had obtained 100-meter-long providence. In the last 100,000 years, there were more than 40 people who had obtained 100-meter-long providence in the Starry Sky Arena. Of these 40 people, about 60% never came back after entering the extraterritorial Starland. They must have died. As for the other 40%, about 20 people, more than half of them died not long after leaving the Starry Sky Arena. They were killed by the dynasty that ruled the Starland at that time. The other half survived and eventually became the strongest in the Starland. These people had one thing in common, which was that they had ended the previous dynasty and started a new one. For example, the founder of the Great Yuan dynasty, Meng Wu, had obtained 100-meter-long providence in the Starry Sky Arena and then survived. According to past practice, those who obtained 100-meter-long providence would enter a star land that was of a higher grade than other martial practitioners who obtained a star land's providence. The star land contained countless treasures. A higher grade meant that the treasures inside were of a higher grade and the rewards would be greater. Therefore, obtaining a 100-meter-long providence would bring many benefits. Of course, the greater the reward, the greater the risk. Entering the higher grade extraterritorial star continents, the death rate was as high as 60%, while entering the normal extraterritorial star continents, the death rate was less than 10%. Sometimes, one would die, and sometimes, none would die. Yixing turned a deaf ear to paramount King Meng Tai's roar. He had already made preparations. He had hidden the Falling Star sect and the Ya family. Now that the Great Yuan dynasty sent people to the Clear Sky region, they wouldn't be able to find them. Yixing waved his hand, and the starlight arrow turned into a streak of light and disappeared. Only then did blood come out of Meng Yuanzhen's forehead. After the battle was over, the teleportation portal didn't move Yixing back to his original position. Instead, a voice rang out. The battle for Providence is over. This year's Son of the Stars has obtained a 100-meter-long Providence and obtained a chance to explore a medium-grade star land with the young geniuses of a medium-grade star land. With these words, the space in front of Yixing changed. With a snap of his fingers, a glowing portal appeared. Go in, Son of the Stars. The teleportation portal leads to the Star Land, which is the closest to the Starry Crescent continent. You'll be exploring it with the young geniuses of the Starry Crescent continent. The voice rang out in the void of the formation again. Yixing put away Meng Yuanzhen's profound weapon, the golden rock spear, and his ring of holding. Then, he took a glance at Wei Qingxian and nodded. Wei Qingxian also nodded. Although the two of them didn't say anything, their gazes were enough to tell each other to take care. Yixing walked to the front of the void matrix gate. Taking a step forward, his gaze swept across the various arenas below. Eventually, his gaze collided with the gaze of the utmost King Meng Tai. Meng Tai's eyes were as sharp as swords and as imposing as a mighty army. His gaze was fixed on Yixing, full of killing intent. According to past practice, as long as Yixing did not die in the extraterritorial star land and return to the star land, he would definitely rise rapidly. The Supreme King Meng Tai had already made up his mind. No matter what price he had to pay, he would strangle Yixing in the cradle. Otherwise, if Yixing grew stronger and became the strongest expert in the star land, the Grand Yuan dynasty's rule would be in jeopardy. Yixing, you're dead for sure. Meng Tai thought to himself, glaring at Nye Tian like a tiger watching its prey. Yixing's expression was calm. Eventually, the corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he stepped into the teleportation portal and disappeared. 3 breaths later, the teleportation portal also disappeared. Chapter 588. Yixing had disappeared, but the martialists were still in shock. Yixing had come from the East Divine Continent's Bloody Edge Empire. Instantly, all the martialists turned to look at the martialists from the Bloody Edge Empire. Mo Jian, what explanation do you have for the Bloody Edge Empire? One of the monarchs from the Great Yuan dynasty stepped forward and shouted angrily. It was the crown prince of the Great Yuan dynasty, Meng Yuansheng. The anger of the monarchs made all the martialists tremble. The martialists from the Bloody Edge Empire were even more aghast. They were afraid that the Great Yuan dynasty would take its anger out on the Bloody Edge Empire. Honorable Mo Jian remained calm as he said, Your Highness, I only accepted Yixing into the Bloody Edge Academy because I saw that he had great talent and potential. I have already asked Your Highness about this matter. Now that Yixing has become an enemy of the Great Yuan dynasty, he has committed treason. From now on, I will expel Yixing from the Bloody Edge Academy. Your Highness, please calm down. Meng Yuanxing had witnessed the genius selection of the East Divine Continent. Honorable Mo Jian had indeed told Meng Yuanxing that he wanted to recruit Yixing into the Bloody Edge Academy. At that time, Meng Yuanxing had not stopped him. Meng Yuanxing said coldly, "Is it enough to expel him from the Bloody Edge Academy?" Honorable Mo Jian said, "When Yixing comes out, I will personally capture him and hand him over to the Great Yuan dynasty for punishment." Meng Yuanxing narrowed his eyes and said coldly, "It's fine if Yixing dies. However, if Yixing doesn't die, the entire Bloody Edge Empire will pay the price." Honorable Mo Jian's eyes twitched slightly as he said, "Yes." At that moment, a surging aura suddenly erupted in the sky, immediately attracting the attention of all the martialists. The source of the surging aura was Wei Qingxian. Her cultivation had actually broken through to the 9th level of the Astral Dipper realm. All the martialists were shocked as they looked at each other. Was there a mistake? How could an 8-star venerable break through to the 9-star venerable realm for no reason? Even for a king's mandate, it would take around a year to go from an 8-star venerable to a 9-star venerable. If they wanted to break through, they would need a quiet environment. But Wei Qingxian just sat there and didn't move. Apart from fighting, she was just watching others fight. She had mysteriously leveled up. It was truly inconceivable. Outsiders might not know, but Wei Qingxian knew very well. Although she was defeated in the battle with Meng Yuanjin, a power had awakened in her bloodline. It was this bloodline power that allowed her cultivation to break through to the 9th level of the astral realm unknowingly. Furthermore, Wei Qingxian could still feel the surging power of her bloodline when she made a breakthrough in her cultivation. It would be of great help to her cultivation breakthrough. According to Wei Qingxuan's estimation, it wouldn't be long before her cultivation base would have a breakthrough, and she would become an astral-reaching venerable. When I became a martial saint or a Daoist, my memories would awaken. Moreover, when I became a Daoist, I would awaken even more memories. I hope that at that time, I would be able to recognize who I am. Wei Qingxian thought to herself. With the awakening of her memories, Wei Qingxian understood a little about her previous life. However, it wasn't comprehensive. This feeling made her feel very perplexed. An 18-year-old 9-star venerable. The martialists of the Blood Edge Empire were the most shocked when they saw Wei Qingxuan's breakthrough. In terms of cultivation base, Wei Qingxian was even more heaven-defying than Yixing. While the martialists were still in shock, another light gate appeared in the void of the array. A voice resounded from the void of the array, "The void gate to the outer realm Starland has been opened. Let's go." Wei Qingxian, Yi Jianga, and the others immediately moved, entering the void gate one by one and disappearing. After a short while, the void array gate and the void array space in the sky all disappeared. There was nothing left but the void. According to the usual practice, the geniuses who entered the outer realm Starland would return after 3 months. The geniuses who entered the inner realm Starland would return after 6 months. In the following time, the martialists in the Starry Sky Arena could only wait. The Supreme King Meng Tai said a few words to the Great Yuan Dynasty's martialists, then left with the kings, returning to the Star Continent through the teleportation array. Yixing had entered the inner realm Starland. Regardless of whether Yixing could return or not, the Supreme King Meng Tai would first kill Yixing's entire family to vent the hatred in his heart. Yixing passed through the void gate. His surroundings were filled with light. He could feel that he was moving rapidly. Soon, Yixing felt that he had stopped. The light around him disappeared. He looked around and realized that he was in a spacious underground hole. Such dense astral spiritual qi. Yixing was surprised. He immediately realized that the astral spiritual qi here was extremely dense. It was more than 100 times denser than the middle sky continent of the Star Continent. The source of the dense astral spiritual qi was the spring water in the middle of the hole. The spring water was milky white and slightly transparent. It looked similar to the star crystal spiritual milk. However, the low-grade and middle-grade star crystal spiritual milk that Yixing had obtained couldn't be compared to the spring water in front of him in terms of astral spiritual qi density. As expected of a inner realm starland. Such a good place. This spring water should be enough for me to cultivate to the peak of the astral realm. Yixing was overjoyed as he thought to himself. He looked around and realized that there was a passage in the corner. Yixing wasn't in a hurry to leave. Instead, he sat down beside the spring water in the middle of the hall and started cultivating. The battle in the starry sky arena had consolidated Yixing's cultivation of astral 8th stage. As long as he had enough astral spiritual energy, Yixing's cultivation would continue to break through. At the same time, Yixing activated the black hole star vortex in his dantian, absorbing the star energy in the spirit spring to cultivate using the star energy in his body. Yixing's cultivation base improved by leaps and bounds. Late stage of astral star realm, peak stage of astral star realm. 9th level astral realm. In just over half a month, Yixing's cultivation had naturally broken through to the 9th level of the astral gang realm and became a venerable 9-star. After half a month of absorption, only less than half of the spring water had been consumed. Yixing continued to circulate the falling star incantation, absorbing and cultivating. After breaking through to the 9th level of the astral realm, Yixing's cultivation continued to advance by leaps and bounds. Mid-stage of the 9th level, late stage of the 9th level, peak of the 9th level. Yixing only stopped cultivating when he reached the peak of the 9th level of the astral realm. He looked at the spring water and saw that there was less than 1/10 of it left. This little bit of spring water was useless for Yixing to break through to the astral reaching realm. Yixing directly put it into his storage ring. When he returned to the star continent, this spring water would definitely be a peerless elixir for astral reaching realm cultivators to increase their cultivation base. After breaking through, Yixing's astral wind had also improved. Yixing could feel the surging power in his body. In the hall, Yixing stood beside the empty spring water and closed his eyes, feeling the fire yuan qi in the surrounding void. Suddenly, Yixing raised his hand and pointed a finger. Fiery red yuan qi gathered at Yixing's fingertip and condensed into a cluster of flames. Chapter 589. Star Continent. East Divine Continent, True Xian Region, Qingyun Region. In the past, a king from the Middle Heaven Continent came to the Luoxing Kingdom. Lord Gao Han of the Duan clan, the patriarch of the Duan clan, a 3-star king, had come to the East Divine Continent under the orders of the Great Yuan Dynasty's supreme king, Meng Tai, to exterminate Yixing's entire clan. The East Divine Continent was the territory of the Dark Star sect. In order to avoid provoking the experts of the Dark Star sect, the Supreme King Meng Tai had specially dispatched the 3rd-level Star Sea Realm Duan Gao Han. From this, one could see the fury in his heart. His desire to exterminate Yixing's entire clan was extremely intense. The Supreme King Meng Tai was the only 4-star King Realm warrior in the Star Land. 3-star King Realm warriors had an extremely high status in the Great Yuan Dynasty, and there were no more than 5 of them. The Supreme King, Meng Tai, was determined to kill Yixing's entire clan by sending Monarch Gao Han here. Duan Gao Han, why did you come all the way from the Central Sky Continent to a remote place like the East Divine Continent? Just as Monarch Alpine arrived at the Luoxing Kingdom, a voice suddenly resounded as a person blocked his path. This man was bare-chested and muscular. His black hair reached his shoulders. He was none other than the left emissary of the Dark Star sect, Black Biao King. The High Frost King's expression changed. He was a 3-star king, but someone had approached him without him noticing. If it were not for the Black Tiger King, he would not have known about the latter's existence. What does it have to do with you? Your Dark Star sect shouldn't meddle in other people's business. The High Frost King glanced indifferently at the Black Tiger King and said, "To be able to trouble a 3-star king like you to come to Yixing's birthplace, it seems like the great Yuan dynasty already knows about his identity as the Demon Star of Troubled Times. Meng Tai actually sent you here. He really attaches great importance to this matter." The Black Biao King said as he looked at the Alpine King like a tiger staring at its prey. "The Supreme King had long predicted that your Dark Star Church would interfere. That's why he sent me here to exterminate Yixing's entire family. With me, the High Frost King, taking action, your Dark Star Church won't be able to stop me," Lord Gao Han said coldly. As a 3-star king and one of the top experts of the Great Yuan dynasty, he was not afraid of the Black Tiger King. "You can't. Go back and tell Meng Tai that from today onwards, the East Divine Continent is the territory of my Dark Star sect. No one from the Great Yuan dynasty is allowed to set foot in it. Even Meng Tai is no exception," the Black Tiger King said indifferently. "What does your Dark Star sect amount to? Even my Duan royal clan can compare to it. Do you think you're qualified to fight against the Great Yuan dynasty? Today, this king will exterminate all 9 generations of Yixing's family. Let's see if you can stop me." Lord Algan roared furiously. He extended his palm and slapped at Black Tiger King. As soon as the Alpine King made his move, the water Yuan Qi in the world was controlled by him and condensed into ice. It transformed into a huge icy hand that blotted out the sky and grabbed at the Black Tiger King. The Black Biao King stood there without moving, but a fierce wind suddenly blew in all directions. The wind was like a blade, spinning non-stop, forming a huge vortex with his body as the center. When the giant ice hand was still 100 meters away from the Black Biao King, it was sliced apart by the wind blade vortex and began to shatter. In the end, the giant ice hand did not even touch the Black Biao King's body. It barely managed to stretch out 10 meters before it was completely blown into ice shards by the wind blades. Your wind momentum has actually reached such a level. Lord Algan's expression changed as he cried out in surprise. The wind blade vortex formed by the wind momentum alone was able to break through Lord Algan's icy stellar wind and the ice momentum, as well as the water Yuan Qi formed the giant ice hand. It was clear that the Black Biao King's comprehension of the wind momentum was much higher than Lord Algan's comprehension of the ice momentum. One sword seals 14 states. A mystic weapon sword appeared in Monarch Gao Han's hand as he executed a mystic high-grade sword technique. The Middle Sky continent was divided into 14 states. This sword technique meant to seal the world in ice with one sword. It was the strongest sword technique. With the dark weapon in hand, Lord Algan's strength multiplied. His icy chi became even stronger, turning everything within 10 miles into ice. Whoosh! When Lord Algan attacked with his sword, he used his astrology. An extreme great ice star hung high in the sky, adding to the icy chi. A 3-star king attacked with his full strength. As soon as the sword light appeared, countless icy swords appeared and slashed in all directions, covering a radius of 10 miles. Crack! Wherever the sword energy passed, a huge crack would appear on the ground. Then, it would turn into an icy canyon. You still dare to attack when you know that my wind momentum is close to perfection. The Black Biao King shouted coldly as his figure disappeared like the wind. Lord Algan's strongest attack missed. It did not even touch the corner of the Black Biao King's clothes. Don't run if you have the guts. Lord Algan shouted coldly as he attacked the Black Biao King with another ultimate sword technique. Whoosh! The swords flashed like meteors as they shot out more than 10 miles and arrived in front of the Black Biao King. You overestimate yourself. The Black Biao King waved his hand, and a dark palm print shot out. It instantly turned into a dark wall that blocked the attack. The dark astral force in the void was instantly drawn by the Black Biao King, forming a dark wall that was even sturdier than an iron wall. Clang! The swords hit the dark wall with a crisp sound of metal clashing. However, the dark wall did not move at all. There was no damage at all. How is this possible? Lord Algan was shocked. He knew how powerful his attack was. It could not even break the Black Biao King's dark wall. This meant that there was a huge gap between their strength. Lord Algan was shocked. He immediately retracted his sword and retreated. However, it was too late. A dark palm print shot out from the dark wall and slapped at Lord Algan. The speed of the dark palm print was so fast that Lord Algan could not dodge it at all. Bang! Lord Algan was hit by the dark palm print, and his body was sent flying more than 10 miles like a cannonball. Puff! Puff! Lord Algan's protective ice shattered instantly. He spat out 3 mouthfuls of blood in the air. He was heavily injured by the Black Biao King's attack. Whoosh! Lord Algan used the force of the Black Biao King's attack to retreat quickly. A pair of mystic wings appeared on his back as he moved like a stream of light. Black Biao, the Supreme King will fight you personally. Lord Algan's voice came from afar. The Black Biao King stood in the air and looked at Lord Algan's retreating figure. He did not chase after him. Although he wasn't afraid of the Deyuan Supreme King, the Dark Star Church was still inferior in terms of overall strength. Most importantly, the Dark Star Church wasn't completely united at the moment. He didn't want to start a decisive battle with the Dark Star Church at this time, so he didn't pursue the High Frost King. The Black Biao King's hope was on Yixing. Only when Yixing fully matured would it be time for the final battle with the Deyuan dynasty. Extraterritorial Star Zone. A smile appeared on Yixing's face as he looked at the flame on his fingertip. It was a real cluster of flames. It was not a flame formed by combining the power of fire with the astral energy. It meant that he had activated the fire Yuan Qi. A venerable 9-star who could activate the Yuan Qi of heaven and earth and communicate with the power of heaven and earth was a half-step venerable one. Chapter 590. Yixing's fire, wind, and darkness grand forces of heaven and earth had all reached the great success realm. He had reached the unity of heaven and earth realm. This was a comprehension that only supremacies could achieve. His comprehension of the grand momentum of heaven and earth had reached the unity of heaven and man. Communicating with the power of heaven and earth was naturally a piece of cake. First, it was the fire elemental energy, then the wind elemental energy, then the darkness elemental energy. Yixing quickly activated the 3 types of elemental energy in the universe. Most warriors could only activate one type of heaven and earth Yuan Qi. Only a very small number of warriors could activate 2 types of heaven and earth Yuan Qi. As for martial artists who could trigger 3 kinds of heaven and earth origin Qi, they were even rarer. Yixing was able to attract 3 types of heaven and earth origin Qi. This meant that if the amount of heaven and earth origin Qi he attracted was equal, his strength would be 3 times that of other warriors. He would have a great advantage. Of course, it did not mean that a warrior who could only draw upon one type of heaven and earth origin Qi would be weaker than a warrior who could draw upon multiple types of heaven and earth origin Qi. The control of heaven and earth Yuan Qi was closely related to a warrior's cultivation and understanding of the heaven and earth's power. If one could draw upon enough heaven and earth Yuan Qi, even if it was only one kind of heaven and earth Yuan Qi, it would be able to display great power. There was a saying in martial arts that the most important thing was the quality, not the quantity. The same principle applied to the activation of heaven and earth Yuan Qi. Yixing raised his hand and the profound weapon, Golden Rock Spear, appeared in his hand. A half-step venerable realm expert could barely activate the power of a dark weapon by using the Qi of heaven and earth. Yixing's three worldly forces were all in the unity of heaven and man state, which was equivalent to a supremacy. Even if his cultivation was not as high as a supremacy's, the amount of worldly qi that he could draw upon was not inferior to a supremacy's. Therefore, Yixing had enough strength to unleash the power of the golden rock spear. With the golden rock spear in his hand, Yixing could clearly feel the power contained within the golden rock spear. If I had my current strength in the battle for providence in the starry sky arena, I wouldn't have needed to use all my trump cards to kill Meng Yuanjin. One spear strike would have been enough to kill him. Yixing thought to himself. His current strength had undergone an earth-shattering change compared to when he was in the 8th level of the astral realm. The unity of heaven and man could only unleash its full power when the heaven and earth yuan qi was activated. Yixing was much more powerful than other half-step venerables after becoming a half-step venerable. Ordinary venerables could not be compared to him. The voice in the formation said that I have entered a mid-level extraterritorial starland and that I will be going on an adventure with the young geniuses of the starry crescent land. I have been here for a month and I have been staying in this cavern. I don't know what this mid-level extraterritorial starland is like. Yixing put away the golden rock spear, glanced at the exit of the hall, and strode towards it. The exit was a long and winding cave. Yixing walked for over 10 miles before he finally walked out of the cave. The entrance to the cave was covered with green vines. If one didn't push aside the green vines, they wouldn't be able to see the cave entrance behind them. The cave was located at the foot of a mountain. Outside the cave was a dense forest. The dense canopy blocked the light and the forest was a little dark. This darkness was nothing to Yixing. His eyesight was strong and he could see very far. After carefully observing the forest, he couldn't even differentiate between north, south, east and west. He could only choose a direction and walk in it. This forest was extremely vast. Yixing climbed over one mountain after another and walked through one valley after another. There were towering trees everywhere. Even when Yixing climbed to the top of the mountain and looked into the distance, he could only see the boundless forest. He couldn't see the end of the forest at all. Yixing chose a direction and kept moving forward. No matter how big the forest was, there must be an end. If he kept moving forward in one direction, he would walk out of the forest sooner or later. In this unfamiliar environment, Yixing didn't dare to fly in the sky to avoid danger. He kept walking through the forest. He walked for 2 days and 2 nights. On the 3rd day, although he still hadn't walked out of the forest, he finally met another warrior. To be more precise, he was stopped by another warrior. There were a total of 3 warriors blocking Yixing's path. They all looked very young, about 18 or 19 years old. They were all less than 20 years old and had already stepped into the astral realm, prolonging their lifespan. Their cultivation auras leaked out. 2 of them were half-step venerables, and the other had already stepped into the astral reaching realm. He was a 1-star venerable. Yixing guessed that since they came to the extraterritorial star continent from the star continent starry sky arena and were less than 25 years old, then the warriors from other continents should be the same. Therefore, these 3 should be younger generation geniuses who were less than 25 years old. In the star continent, the highest cultivation among the younger generation geniuses under 25 years old was only at the 9th level of the astral realm. Yixing had only broken through after coming to the extraterritorial star continent. Because his comprehension of the worldly momentum had reached the realm of one with the world, he was able to quickly draw the yuan qi of heaven and earth and become a half-step venerable. And of the 3 people in front of him, 2 were half-step venerables, and 1 was even a true venerable who had passed through the thunder calamity. Yixing couldn't help but sigh with emotion. The younger generation geniuses of a mid-level continent were indeed not comparable to the younger generation geniuses of a low-level continent like the star continent. Yixing looked at the 3 young warriors who had suddenly blocked his path. He cupped his fists and bowed, saying, "Brothers, may I ask how to get out of this forest?" The three didn't answer, but their gazes were firmly fixed on Yixing. Yixing waited impatiently. Just as he was about to ask again, the one-star venerable in the middle finally spoke. "I have never seen you before. You are not from the 7 great sects." The one-star venerable said word by word, looking a little puzzled. Only the 7 great sects of the Starry Crescent land were qualified to send people into the extraterritorial star continent. Before entering, the younger generation geniuses of the 7 great sects had met each other. Yixing didn't belong to any of the 7 great sections. Zhuo Chushan looked at Yixing for a while and compared him with the younger generation geniuses of the 7 great sects who had entered the extraterritorial star continent. He was sure that the person in front of him didn't belong to any of the 7 great sections. After Zhuo Chushan finished speaking, the half-step venerable on his left said, "Senior brother Zhuo, could he be a disciple of the Big Dipper sword sect in disguise?" Zhuo Chushan nodded at the person who spoke and said, "Who cares if he is a disciple of the Big Dipper sword sect in disguise? Let's capture him and slowly interrogate him." Qing Jin, Ling Man. After saying that, Zhuo Chushan glanced at Yixing. His meaning was obvious. Qing Jin and Ling Man, the 2 half-step venerables, looked at Yixing with their eyes lit up. Their auras suddenly burst out. Yixing frowned and said, "I don't know you and we don't interfere in each other's business. Why do you want to capture me?" Qing Jin and Ling Man chuckled and didn't answer Yixing. Instead, they attacked Yixing at the same time. Chapter 591. Although they were half-step venerables, Qing Jin and Ling Man both had dark weapons. Qing Jin's dark weapon was a sledgehammer, while Ling Man's was a long saber. Both of them used their astrology at the same time. Surging astral power poured down from the extreme astrology. Both of them unleashed their full strength without showing any mercy. Qing Jin's dark weapon sledgehammer was like a mountain pressing down. Just the pressure from the air was no less than a full blow from Venerable 9-star. Ling Man's long saber was extremely fast. Before the sledgehammer fell on his head, the long saber was already at his waist. If Yixing dodged the attack of the profound weapon saber, then the profound weapon sledgehammer in the sky would immediately change direction. Wherever Yixing dodged, the sledgehammer would attack. If Yixing did not dodge, not only would he have to face the long saber's attack, but he would also have to face the sledgehammer's attack. Apparently, the two of them often fought at the same time. They cooperated very well. Moreover, both of them were very powerful. They were much more powerful than ordinary half-step venerables. They were definitely not below Meng Yuanjin. If they worked together, they could definitely compete with ordinary venerables. At least, a 1-star venerable would be flustered if he encountered Yixing's current situation. It would be difficult for him to deal with the two's joint attack. Yixing didn't dodge the joint attack of the two of them. Instead, he stood as still as a mountain. Whoosh! A terrifying aura burst out. There was even a flame burning outside Yixing's body. The golden rock spear appeared in his hand. He stomped the spear on the ground beside him. Yixing held the golden rock spear with the spear on the ground. His aura was like an unshakable mountain. Clang! At this moment, the dark weapon's long saber arrived. Because it was blocked by the golden rock spear, the saber slashed on the spear. Sparks flew in the air. Ling Man's saber was so powerful that even a 1-star venerable had to dodge it. However, Yixing stomped on the ground with the spear. He was as still as a mountain. The saber did not shake Yixing's figure. Hit! A loud shout came from the sky. Yixing had blocked Ling Man's blade, but he was immediately struck by the Xian weapon's sledgehammer. Yixing did not panic. He suddenly raised his other hand and waved it above his head. Who in an instant, a violent wind blew, forming a hurricane vortex that was pulled to the side. This was the result of Yixing circulating the wind power of the state of one with the world to the limit. The wind power he drew upon formed a hurricane whirlpool. It was extremely powerful. When the profound weapon sledgehammer fell into the whirlpool, it was immediately pulled to the side and smashed towards Lang Man's head. Lang Man was about to attack Yixing a second time with the dark weapon long saber in his hand. Suddenly, a huge hammer pressed down on him. His expression turned into one of shock as he exclaimed, "Senior Marshal Brother Qing." Lang Man instantly withdrew his saber and slashed upwards. When Qing Jin saw that the hammer in his hand did not hit Yixing and instead smashed towards Lang Man's head, he was shocked and hurriedly withdrew his strength. Bang! When the dark weapon long saber and the dark weapon sledgehammer collided, there was a loud explosion and sparks flew everywhere. The dark weapon long saber buzzed from the impact. Lang Man's qi and blood were in turmoil and he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. How could his hurried saber be compared to the strength of Qing Jin's hammer? If Qing Jin had not withdrawn his strength, this hammer would have seriously injured him. Get lost! At this moment, Yixing shouted coldly and the golden rock spear in his hand swept out horizontally. Qing Jin and Lang Man had hurriedly withdrawn their strength because of the exchange of blows. At this moment, when faced with Yixing's sudden attack, how could they be fully prepared? The two of them barely managed to put their dark weapons in front of them and were hit by the golden rock spear. The golden rock spear whipped past the dark weapon long saber and the dark weapon sledgehammer, creating a line of sparks. The terrifying power ruthlessly passed through the two dark weapons. Swoosh! Swoosh! Qing Jin and Lang Man's bodies shook as they were pushed back by the power of the spear. In the air, the two of them spat out a mouthful of blood. The two of them were indeed powerful and were not inferior to Meng Yuanjin. However, for the current Yixing, they could not withstand a single blow. Qing Jin and Lang Man flew back for a few miles before they could stabilize their bodies. They landed on the ground and looked at Yixing, their eyes filled with shock and fear. Their strength was already outstanding among the half-step honorables and they could defeat ordinary half-step honorables. When the two of them joined forces, they were comparable to an ordinary one-star honorable. However, they were defeated by a half-step honorable of the same level. This shocked the two of them. Even among the 7 major sects of the Starry Crescent Land, geniuses with such combat strength were rare. Yixing did not chase after Qing Jin and Lang Man. Instead, he looked at the one-star honorable Zhuochushan. When Qing Jin and Lang Man were defeated, Zhuochushan exploded with a terrifying aura. His aura locked onto Yixing. If Yixing continued to attack Qing Jin and Lang Man, he would have to face a terrifying attack from Zhuochushan. Zhuochushan's aura was extremely frightening. It was far from being comparable to an ordinary one-star honorable. Even if Yixing was confident in his strength and was not inferior to an ordinary honorable, he was still very wary of Zhuochushan. Zhuochushan's strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Yixing's feeling was right. Zhuochushan was a genius disciple of the Celestial Palace. Even if he had become an astral-reaching honorable, he still had the strength to challenge those with a higher level. Moreover, Zhuochushan was not only qualified to challenge those with a higher cultivation base, but he could also defeat those with a higher cultivation base. An ordinary 2-star honorable would not be able to last more than 10 moves in front of Zhuochushan. Zhuochushan stared at Yixing and said, "The Big Dipper sword sect doesn't have such a powerful half-step honorable." "You? Who are you?" Yixing asked, "And who are you?" Zhuochushan said, "I'm a disciple of the Celestial Palace, Zhuochushan." "The same goes for those two. Which sect are you from? Tell me your name. If you have some connection with the Celestial Palace, I'll let you go." If you don't, you'll have to bear the consequences of injuring my disciples. Yixing murmured, Celestial Palace. Zhuqiushan saw this and was shocked. He shouted, You don't know about the Celestial Palace. You're not a martial artist from the Starry Crescent land. This extraterritorial star continent was a mid-level extraterritorial star continent. Under normal circumstances, only the geniuses of the Starry Crescent land could enter. It had always been controlled by a few of the most powerful forces in the Starry Crescent land. However, there were exceptions. Whenever there were geniuses from the lower continents near the Starry Crescent land, there was a chance that they would come here. Although such a situation was rare, it would happen every once in a while. Zhuqiushan's eyes were like knives as he stared at Yixing and said, Which star continent are you from? The Starry Crescent land was only one of the lower continents near the Starry Crescent land. Zhuqiushan knew that there were a total of 8 lower continents near the Starry Crescent land. Chapter 592. I'm indeed not a martial artist from Starry Crescent land. As for which continent I'm from, you don't need to know. Yixing looked at Zhuqiushan cautiously and said, I just want to leave this forest. We have no grudge against each other. Why do we have to fight to the death? The corners of Zhuqiushan's mouth curled up. He sneered and said, Trash from an inferior continent, how dare you lay your hands on the treasures of an intermediate extraterritorial star continent? Here, your existence is a mistake. You should die. Yixing's gaze sharpened as he said coldly, There's still room for negotiation. I'm new here and don't want to get into trouble. But this doesn't mean that I'm afraid of you. If you insist on fighting to the death, the ones who will die, may be you. Is that so? You're the first half-step honorable who dares to speak like this in front of me. A dark weapon halberd suddenly appeared in Zhuqiushan's hand, and his power multiplied. Zhuqiushan pointed the dark weapon halberd at Yixing and yelled coldly, No half-step martial highness would dare to be so presumptuous in front of me, Zhuqiushan. Moreover, you're just a piece of trash from an inferior continent. Swoosh. Starlight flashed between Yixing's eyebrows as he used the extreme flame astrology. His power increased tremendously. The golden rock spear shone brightly as the tip of the spear pointed at Zhuqiushan. Yixing shouted, Since you want to fight to the death, bring it on. Yixing had nothing else to say. He was not afraid of a fight. Then you shall die. Hee hee. Zhuqiushan sneered as the dark weapon halberd in his hand shone with a yellow light. With the power to destroy mountains, he struck down with the halberd. It was a strong earth momentum, and the earth vital chi was extremely dense. When the halberd struck down, it was not inferior to a real mountain. Even an ordinary honorable would be suppressed in an instant. Get lost! Yixing yelled. He used the power of fire and fused it with the power of the fire astral form. He stirred up an extremely thick chi of heaven and earth. Yixing's body was covered in flames, and his golden rock spear was completely covered in flames. His physical strength was completely unleashed, and he thrust out his spear with raging flames. The spear shot out like a dragon, like a fire dragon soaring to the heavens. Boom! The spears collided with each other, like a mountain crashing into each other, deafening. Facing this terrifying attack, Yixing did not fall into a disadvantageous position. Like a fire dragon, the flame spear directly rebounded the dark weapon halberd. Kill! Yixing took a step forward and shouted loudly. The golden rock spear danced like a fiery dragon as it launched a counterattack at Zhuqiushan. Rumble 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 rumble, the spear and halberd were both Xian weapons and possessed astonishing power. Every time they collided, there would be a huge tremor and a loud explosion. Terrifying earth energy splattered in all directions. The most frightening thing was the earth and fire yuan qi that spread in all directions. Wherever they passed, the earth cracked, giant trees were snapped, and even a mountain nearby was flattened by the two of them. In less than 10 breaths' time, the two of them had already exchanged more than 10 blows. Sui Chushan was forced to retreat a few hundred meters, and the path was a mess. In the distance, Qing Jin and Leng Man were dumbfounded. They looked shocked as they watched the two of them fight, and they were in disbelief. They had never seen a half-step honorable with such terrifying strength. Even among the younger generation of the Starry Crescent Land, perhaps only the demonic genius of the Big Dipper sword sect had such a heaven-defying strength when he was a half-step honorable. However, although they were shocked, they were still confident in Sui Chushan. After all, Sui Chushan had not used his astrology. Sui Chushan was also shocked at the moment, and he felt extremely aggrieved. With his strength, it was easy for him to suppress a half-step honorable, and there was no need for him to use his astrology. He only needed to use less than 10% of his strength. However, he was being forced to retreat by a half-step honorable, and he was actually at a disadvantage. Sui Chushan was in disbelief, and it was difficult for him to accept the fact. Sui Chushan wanted to kill Yixing without using his astrology, but it was a pity that he would never be able to fulfill his wish. Yixing was getting stronger as the fight went on, and it was obvious that Sui Chushan was going to lose. If he did not use his astrology, he would definitely lose to Yixing, and his life would be in danger. Whoosh! When Sui Chushan retreated 1,000 meters, he finally could not help but use his astrology. A ray of starlight shot into the sky and turned into an earthy yellow star. It was the highest grade of the earth element astrology. You can actually force me to use my astrology. You should be proud of yourself. Die! Sui Chushan shouted loudly as he used his astrology, and his strength skyrocketed. His halberd technique was already very powerful, and Yixing could only win by a small margin when he unleashed all of his strength. Now, the tables were completely turned. Boom! Sui Chushan swung his halberd. Before the halberd's shadow reached him, the void in front of him was compressed by an invisible force, and it became solid. It made Yixing feel like he was shackled, and it was difficult for him to move. Yixing's strength was powerful, after all, and the compression of the void could not do anything to him. Yixing activated his astral energy, and the void around him shattered as if it was solid. The golden rock spear stabbed out like a dancing fire dragon, and attacked the dark weapon halberd. Boom! The halberd and spear collided, and the sound shook the sky. Chapter 593. The translucent body of the mountain had a strong defense. It blocked all of Yixing's spear energy. As for the spear energy that was hit by the dark weapon halberd, it shattered instantly. In the blink of an eye, the dark weapon halberd was in front of Yixing and collided with the golden rock spear. Boom! With a loud explosion, Yixing's body was sent flying backward. Sui Chushan's attack power was indeed terrifying. Even though Yixing's physical strength was strong, he could not control the shock of the blood in his body. He spat out a mouthful of blood. Although he did not spit out blood directly, there was blood at the corner of his mouth. This was not the grand astral arena where the sight of blood meant defeat. There would be a formation to separate the two. This was the extraterritorial Starland. Only death was a real defeat. At this moment, a strong murderous intent shot out from Yixing's eyes. Ha! How does fresh blood taste? Sui Chushan was overjoyed when he saw that. He laughed loudly and the dark weapon halberd shone with a yellow light as he continued to attack Yixing. Whoosh! A ray of starlight shot out from Yixing's glabella and turned into a black hole vortex. Yixing used the black hole astrology. The world in front of Sui Chushan instantly turned into darkness. He could not even see his own fingers. Yixing's dark grand momentum was oneness of heaven and man. His residual shadow footwork was even more elusive in the dark world. In an instant, he changed his position and Zhuo Qiushan's attack missed. Yixing's figure merged perfectly with the dark world. Without a sound, Zhuo Qiushan suddenly lost his sense of Yixing. He could not see Yixing and could not sense Yixing's position. Zhuo Qiushan was completely blind. Zhuo Qiushan was shocked. The mountain shadow that was about to dissipate suddenly lit up again. He continued to use the defensive secret skill, Mountain Shield. Double astrology. This guy is a genius with double astrology. In the distance, Qing Jin and Leng Man noticed the astrological signs above Yixing. Seeing the two astrological signs side by side, the two of them immediately cried out in surprise. As for the dark world that Zhuo Qiushan was in, he had become blind. The two of them had no idea at all. If they were not in the dark world of the black hole astrology, they would not be able to experience the feeling of falling into darkness. Whoosh! Suddenly, the sound of something tearing through the air resounded. When Zhuo Qiushan heard the sound of something breaking through the air, the illusory mountain peak outside his body shook violently. It had already been pierced by Yixing's spear. At this moment, Yixing did not pursue quantity, so he did not perform the wind shadow spear art. Instead, he purely combined the power of the heaven and earth, the power of the stars, and the power of the stars. He drew the thickest yuan qi of the heaven and earth, and combined it with the power of his physical body, exploding out with the most powerful attack. This spear only had pure speed and pure power. The mountainous defense was a dark-level defensive secret technique. Its defensive power was very strong, but Zhuo Qiushan had not cultivated it to a high level. He could still withstand a normal attack from a dark-level weapon, but when Yixing went all out, his defense was a little weak. Yixing's spear pierced directly into the illusory mountain peak. The illusory mountain peak shattered under the attack of the golden rock spear. The distance between the tip of the spear and Zhuo Qiushan was less than a meter in the blink of an eye. However, the blink of an eye was not short for a venerable one. It was enough for him to react. Zhuo Qiushan swung the dark-level weapon halberd in his hand and blocked Yixing's spear. Clang! With a crisp sound, Yixing's figure retreated explosively, disappearing without a trace of his aura. Yixing did not fight head-on with Zhuo Qiushan. As soon as Zhuo Qiushan blocked it, Yixing took the lead to retreat before Zhuo Qiushan could exert any force. Whoosh! In the blink of an eye, Yixing attacked from another direction. The golden rock spear was like a fiery dragon that charged forward and stabbed hard into the illusory mountain peak outside Zhuo Qiushan. When Zhuo Qiushan heard the sound, Yixing was about to pierce through the illusory mountain peak again. He was less than a meter away from his body. Zhuo Qiushan's forehead was sweating. With the illusory mountain peak blocking, he had some time to defend himself. He immediately swung the dark-level weapon halberd in his hand. Upon seeing this, Yixing immediately retracted his spear and retreated rapidly. The golden rock spear and the dark-level weapon halberd collided lightly. Once again, he cleverly avoided a head-on collision with Zhuo Qiushan. Qing Jin, Leng Man! Zhuo Qiushan shouted. His voice was hurried and a little frightened. Whoosh! At this moment, Yixing's third spear came from an unexpected angle. With each stab, a hole appeared in the illusory mountain peak. Although it was not completely pierced, it greatly reduced the defensive power of the hill's suppression. If Yixing continued attacking like this, the illusory mountain peak would be completely shattered in a few strikes. Without the defense of the hill's suppression, Zhuo Qiushan would definitely not be able to withstand the attack of the golden rock spear. Clang! As soon as Zhuo Qiushan finished speaking, the dark-level weapon halberd collided with the golden rock spear again. However, Yixing cleverly avoided a head-on collision again. He retreated with a light touch. A third hole appeared in the illusory mountain peak outside Zhuo Qiushan. In the distance, Qing Jin and Leng Man heard Zhuo Qiushan's terrified cry. Only then did they know that Sui Chushan was in a bad situation. Senior brothers Wa. Both of them exclaimed at the same time and rushed toward Yixing whoosh. At this moment, Yixing had already launched his fourth spear attack at Sui Chushan. Qing Jin and Leng Man were still a few miles away from Yixing. Yixing glanced at both of them and both of them fell into the dark world of the black hole astrology at the same time. They looked shocked. Bang! Due to the obstruction of the illusory mountain peak, Sui Chushan once again blocked Yixing's attack. However, there were already 4 holes in the illusory mountain peak. Its defensive power was getting weaker and weaker. It could no longer withstand a few strikes from Yixing. Both of you, come here quickly. Sui Chushan shouted. The fear in his voice deepened. A few miles away, Qing Jin and Leng Man were trapped in the dark world. Only when one was in the dark world would one understand the horror of not being able to see anything. At this moment, Qing Jin and Leng Man's hearts were trembling with fear. They were afraid that Yixing would suddenly launch an attack in the dark and they would be dead meat. How could they still dare to rush towards Sui Chushan? After Qing Jin and Leng Man fell into the dark world, they made the same decision almost simultaneously. Both of them immediately turned around and a supreme-grade flying spiritual weapon appeared behind them. They quickly flew back in the direction they came from. The 5th strike, the 6th strike. The 9th strike, the 10th strike. Every time Yixing thrust his spear, there would be another hole in the illusory mountain peak. Its defensive power would weaken by a notch. When Yixing thrust his spear for the 10th time, the illusory mountain peak finally shattered completely. The golden rock spear was like a stream of light as it instantly pierced Sui Chushan's head. Sui Chushan had a mystic-grade defensive inner armor on his body. However, the inner armor could not protect his head. The power of Yixing's spear was terrifying. The tip of the golden rock spear pierced a fist-sized hole in Sui Chushan's head. It directly shattered his glabella and penetrated his brain, killing him instantly. Bang! Yixing withdrew his spear. Sui Chushan fell to the ground. Until his death, his eyes were filled with disbelief that he would die in the hands of a half-step venerable one. Chapter 594. At that moment, Qing Jin and Leng Man had already escaped more than 10 miles away. They had left the dark world and were using their supreme-grade flying spiritual tools to escape at full speed. Yixing glanced at them. The golden rock spear in his hand disappeared and the Big Dipper bow appeared in an instant. Whoosh! Another beam of starlight shot into the sky. Yixing had used the Sagittarius constellation. Yixing pulled the Big Dipper bow into the shape of a full moon. Starlight arrows appeared. The Sagittarius constellation's vitality, 3 types of worldly momentum, 3 types of worldly vitality, astral energy, the 6 transformations of the heart's art of archery. All sorts of powers gathered on the starlight arrows, causing them to shine brightly and contain terrifying power. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yixing pulled the bow twice in the blink of an eye. 2 starlight arrows shot out like meteors. They traveled more than 10 miles in an instant and another 10 miles in the blink of an eye. Qing Jin and Leng Man, who were fleeing at full speed, did not expect Yixing to be an expert in archery. When they sensed the danger behind them, it was already too late. The starlight arrows shot through the back of their necks and came out of their throats, leaving a thumb-sized hole. Blood gushed out. Both of them screamed at the same time. They covered their throats with both hands and fell from the sky. Their eyes were filled with unwillingness as their lives were quickly drained away. Trying to escape in front of me, Yixing said faintly. He put away the Big Dipper bow and looked at Sui Chushan's corpse. Yixing turned on his super brain and saw through it. He immediately saw Sui Chushan's flame of destiny. It's a 7-flame green flame. This is the 7-star blue fate. He's destined to become a 7-star king. No wonder he could become a venerable at such a young age. His cultivation talent is monstrous. Yixing exclaimed. He then used the black hole astrology to devour Zhou Chushan's flame of destiny. Zhou Chushan's flame of destiny dwindled bit by bit while Yixing's flame of destiny rapidly increased in number. The number of green flames increased from 5 to 6, then to 7, 8, 9. When the number of green flames reached 9, they fused together to form a single green flame. This represented Yixing's evolution to the king's mandate. The number of blue flames increased to 7 in the end, representing Yixing's ascension to the 7-star blue fate. At this time, Zhou Chushan's flame of destiny had completely disappeared, completely devoured by Yixing's 7-star azure life. As long as one had a cultivation technique, one could cultivate all the way to the 7-star king realm. Yixing felt excited just thinking about it. In the Starland, the strongest king realm cultivator was only at the 4th level of the Star Sea realm. Moreover, the supreme king Meng Tai was the only one. A 7-star king realm cultivator was considered a high-level king realm cultivator. Even in the Starry Crescent land, they were considered experts. The two were not on the same level. Currently, Yixing possessed the black level middle tier falling star incantation and could cultivate to the 9-star Reverend Lord realm. However, he was not worried about the black level upper tier and supreme tier cultivation techniques. After he became a Reverend, he could continue to train in the Starry Hall and obtain higher tier cultivation techniques and other treasures. Therefore, as long as he had enough time to grow, he would definitely become the strongest person in the Star Land in the future. By then, it would be a piece of cake for him to destroy the Great Yuan dynasty. Yixing kept the astrology with a smile on his face. He was in a good mood. He could foresee a bright future ahead of him. Yixing kept Zhou Chushan's storage ring and took off his black level defensive inner armor. This is a black level defensive inner armor. Even if I hit it with all my might, I wouldn't be able to break its defense. It's a pity that the inner armor can only protect the body but not the head. Yixing lamented as he put on the black level defensive inner armor. If the difference in strength between two people was not too great, a defensive inner armor would be very useful during a battle. After all, vital parts like the head and the neck were small and easy to dodge. However, it was extremely difficult to hit them. During a battle, the body would at most be injured. If one had a defensive inner armor, it would be able to withstand the attack on the body. The reason why Zhou Chushan was shot in the head by Yixing was because he was in the dark world. Faced with Yixing's quick attack, he was unable to defend himself. If he could see clearly, he would definitely not have the time to react to Yixing's attack. I told you that if you were to fight, you might be the ones to die. However, you didn't believe me. Be more observant in your next life. Looking at Zhou Chushan's corpse, Yixing said. With the point of his finger, fire yuan qi gathered and immediately set Zhou Chushan's corpse ablaze. The fire of yuan qi was extremely terrifying. Even if a venerable was alive, he would be burned to death by the fire of yuan qi. When he was dead, he would not be able to use his astral energy to defend himself. Naturally, he would be burned to ashes very quickly. After a short while, Yixing came to the place where Qing Jin and Leng Man died. He took their storage rings, the supreme spiritual weapons in their hands, and the spiritual level supreme defensive inner armor on their bodies. Yixing pointed his finger and the fire of yuan qi gathered immediately. Qing Jin and Leng Man were only half-step venerables. Their bodies had not been tempered by the thunder calamity. When the fire of yuan qi touched them, they turned into ashes within 10 breaths. The azure cloud wings appeared on Yixing's back. Yixing increased his speed and left the place. When he left, Yixing used the dark force to gather the dark yuan qi to hide his body silently. Even if someone came to investigate, they would not be able to find traces of him leaving. Yixing traveled for an entire day. Although he did not fly at high altitudes, he used the azure cloud wings to shuttle through the forest at an extremely fast speed. He traveled at least tens of thousands of miles in a day. The forest was extraordinarily huge. Yixing still could not walk out. The surroundings were still dense with trees. When Yixing found a canyon without trees in the endless forest, he stopped in his tracks. The canyon was covered in green grass. Compared to the forest that covered the sky and the sun, it felt much more comfortable. Yixing found a spot in the canyon and sat down. He took out the storage rings of Suochushan, Qingjin, and Lengman. He erased the imprints they left behind and began to check. There were not many things in the storage rings. However, the quality of the items was not low. They were at least high-grade spiritual level treasures or supreme-grade spiritual level treasures. They were very valuable. Especially in Suochushan's storage ring. Yixing found a piece of mystic level metal among the many materials. This is purple profound azure gold. Yixing looked at the purple profound azure gold in his hand and was overjoyed. The purple profound azure gold was a mystic level metal. The azure cloud wings were made of levitation azure gold. It could absorb all the azure gold to evolve. Now that the azure cloud wings was a supreme-grade flying spirit tool, it could evolve into a mystic-level flying wing after absorbing the purple profound azure gold. He raised his left hand and the azure cloud wings appeared in his left palm. He held the purple profound azure gold in his right hand and used the union of heaven and man's fire force to ignite the fire yuan qi between heaven and earth. Chapter 595. The purple profound azure gold was incinerated by the fire and turned into a scarlet liquid that was absorbed by the azure cloud wings. As more and more of the purple profound azure gold was absorbed, the azure cloud wings gradually emitted an intense light. When the entire piece of purple profound azure gold was absorbed, the azure cloud wings already had a hint of purple. At this time, the azure cloud wings aura was much stronger than when it was at the peak grade of the spirit grade. It had already evolved to the profound grade. Moreover, the purple profound azure gold's grade was not low. According to Yixing's judgment, the azure cloud wings grade was very likely to have evolved to the middle grade of the profound grade. Yixing clenched his fist and the azure cloud wings returned to his body. In the next moment, Yixing's thoughts moved and a pair of huge azure wings grew out of Yixing's back. Every feather of the azure wings had a hint of purple in it. They were all made of metal and emitted a cold light. These sharp feathers were very sturdy and not weaker than profound-grade weapons. They could be used as weapons. Feeling the surging aura of the azure cloud wings, Yixing's lips curled into a smile. After the azure cloud wings evolved to the middle grade of the profound grade, how fast would its speed be? Yixing could conclude that on the star continent, unless it was a sovereign lord with profound grade wings, his speed would not be inferior to any ordinary sovereigns. Yixing withdrew the azure cloud wings and a series of crisp metallic clangs rang out. Just by listening to the sound, one could feel the sharpness of the metal feathers on the azure cloud wings. After coming to this star continent, Yixing's cultivation first increased to the half-step sovereign realm, then his destiny evolved to the 7-star king destiny. Now, the azure cloud wings had evolved to the low grade of the profound grade. Yixing felt extremely happy just thinking about it. People were in high spirits when faced with happy events. Yixing's current state of mind was especially different. His heart was carefree and he even had the thought of drinking a few cups. Yixing had the drunken immortal wine that the Black Biao King had given him. He immediately took out a bottle and drank a mouthful. Awesome! Although it was awesome, just drinking wine made him feel like something was missing. Yixing took out some of the crystal fire beast's tender meat and started a fire to roast it. Roasted crystal fire beast meat with drunken cien or wine was a perfect match. The crystal fire beast's tender meat rolled on top of the fire. Not long after, it turned golden and shone with a fragrant aroma. The grease slid down and fell into the fire, making crackling noises. Just as the crystal fire beast's tender meat was about to be cooked, the fragrance attracted a guest. A white-clothed youth around 16 or 17 years old was attracted by the fragrance. He sat down in front of Yixing and said, "It smells so good. Brother, can you share some with me?" The white-clothed young man had a graceful bearing, giving people a gentle feeling like a gentle breeze caressing one's face. Yixing smiled indifferently and said, "It's better for two people to be happy than one person. Brother, if you're in the mood, drink with me." As he spoke, Yixing took out a bottle of drunken immortal wine and threw it over. Yixing knew nothing about the extraterritorial Starland and the Starry Crescent Land. He wanted to ask someone, but Zhuo Qiushan and the others wanted to kill him. This white-clothed young man's temperament was completely different from Zhuo Qiushan and the others. Moreover, he had an easygoing attitude. Yixing was naturally willing to part with some drunken immortal wine and crystal fire beast's tender meat. Moreover, Yixing used his super brain to scan the white-clothed young man's cultivation. He was at the first level of astral reaching realm, similar to Zhuo Qiushan. Even a genius like Zhuo Qiushan, who could challenge those above his level, was killed by Yixing. Yixing was naturally not afraid of this white-clothed young man. The white-clothed young man took the bottle of drunken immortal wine and drank a mouthful, then said, "Good wine. Brother, you actually have such good food and wine. I'm really envious. It's my fortune to be able to meet you and taste such good wine and food." Yixing could tell from the white-clothed young man's tone that he knew he was not a martial artist from the Starry Crescent Land. At this moment, the tender meat of the crystal fire beast had been roasted. Yixing cut half of it and gave it to the white-clothed young man, then said, "Brother, accompany me to eat meat and drink wine. I'd like to ask you a few questions. Is that okay?" The white-clothed young man smiled and said, "Is it about the Starry Crescent Land?" Yixing nodded and said, "Also, this is my first time here. I'd like to ask you to introduce it to me." "No problem," the white-clothed young man said, then took a bite of the crystal fire beast's tender meat. His eyes immediately lit up and he praised, "Delicious. I've never tasted anything as delicious as this even in the Starry Crescent Land. With such good wine, it's a perfect match." Yixing smiled faintly. It seemed that this Feng Xiaoxiao was also a foodie. Yixing took a bite of the crystal fire beast's tender meat and drank a mouthful of Zui Xian, wine. Although it was very comfortable, it was no longer as shocking as it was at the beginning. The white-clothed young man savored the taste for a few breaths of time and drank another mouthful of Zui Xian, wine. Then, he smacked his lips and said, "Let me introduce myself first. My name is Feng Xiaoxiao, a disciple of the Big Dipper sword sect in the Starry Crescent Land." Yixing also reported his name. Yixing, from a low-level continent. Yixing did not know whether martial artists from mid-level continents could go to low-level continents. Previously, he had killed 3 disciples from the Celestial Elephant Palace in the Starry Crescent Land. It was very likely that he would be found out. Therefore, he only reported his name and did not mention which continent he was from. Feng Xiaoxiao said, "Near the Starry Crescent Land, there are a total of 8 low-level continents. Martial artists from low-level continents can reach the Starry Crescent Land through the spatial passageways connecting the low-level and mid-level continents." Yixing's eyes lit up. If there came a day when he became the strongest martial artist in the Starry Crescent Land, his strength would exceed the Starry Crescent Land's capacity. In that case, he might be related to the Starry Crescent Land. His current destiny was as high as a 7-star blue destiny, and he could cultivate to become a 7-star king. However, the Starry Crescent Land's providence was limited. If he wanted to become a 7-star king, he would have to leave the Starry Crescent Land and go to the Starry Crescent Land. It seemed that one day in the future, Yixing would go to the Starry Crescent Land. Yixing said, "The Starry Crescent Land is a mid-level continent. Its martial arts must be much stronger than the low-level continents. Are there many quasi-gods?" Feng Xiaoxiao said, "It's a shame to say that the Starry Crescent Land is the weakest mid-level continent. It is not much stronger than the low-level continents. The continent's providence can only support martial artists to reach the first nirvana quasi-god level. Moreover, it is rare for one to appear in many years. Therefore, there are not many quasi-gods." Yixing asked, "What kind of power is the Celestial Elephant Palace in the Starry Crescent Land? How is it compared to the Big Dipper Sword Sect?" Feng Xiaoxiao said, "The Celestial Elephant Palace and the Big Dipper Sword Sect are two of the strongest forces in the Starry Crescent Land. Each sect has a quasi-god as their leader, and they can barely be considered as 4-star forces. There are a total of 7 sects in the Starry Crescent Land with quasi-gods as their leaders. They are the Demon Sealing Valley, the Giant Spirit Sect, the Golden Lion Sect, the Moon Severing Sect, the Celestial Elephant Palace, the Darkeen Palace, and the Big Dipper Sword Sect." Chapter 596. At this point, Feng Xiaoxiao smiled and said, "Brother, since you're asking about Celestial Elephant Palace, it seems like you've come into contact with their disciples. Something unpleasant must have happened." Yixing glanced at Feng Xiaoxiao without batting an eyelid. She had managed to come to this conclusion just because he had asked about Celestial Elephant Palace. Clearly, she was a meticulous person and understood the personalities of the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace very well. Feng Xiaoxiao said, "Brother, please don't be offended. The disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace are arrogant and despotic. If you meet them, they will definitely bully you. A fight is inevitable." Since she had made it clear, Yixing did not hide anything and said, "I met 3 disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace. One of them is called Sui Chushan and he brought 2 half-step honorables with him. I did get into a fight with them. Are there any other disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace in the extraterritorial star continent?" Feng Xiaoxiao nodded and said, "Every 30 years, the extraterritorial star continent opens. The 7 major sects of Starry Crescent Land will send in 100 disciples below the age of 25. The Giant Spirit Sect, the Golden Lion Sect, the Moon Severing Sect, the Darkeen Palace, and the Big Dipper Sword Sect each occupy 14 spots. Among them, the Demon Sealing Valley and Celestial Elephant Palace occupy 15 spots each. There are many disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace in this extraterritorial star continent." Yixing asked, "Why do the Demon Sealing Valley and Celestial Elephant Palace have 1 more spot each?" Feng Xiaoxiao said, "Although the 7 major sects have quasi-gods in charge and are the most powerful forces in Starry Crescent Land, there are still differences in strength among the 7 major sections. The Demon Sealing Valley and Celestial Elephant Palace are the 2 most powerful forces among the 7 major sections. Whoever has the biggest fist has the most say. The 100 spots can't be divided equally among the 7 major sections. Therefore, the 2 extra spots will be taken by the Demon Sealing Valley and Celestial Elephant Palace each. Who can say no?" Yixing nodded and asked, "How is Sui Chushan's strength among the 15 spots in Celestial Elephant Palace? Is he considered first-rate?" Feng Xiaoxiao chuckled and said, "Sui Chushan, first-rate. Hee hee. Brother Yi, you've underestimated the younger generation disciples of the 7 major sections. Every sect only selected a dozen people to enter this place. Which one of them isn't an elite? Furthermore, Celestial Elephant Palace is one of the 2 most powerful forces. Of course, their younger generation disciples are full of geniuses. Zhuqiushan's ability is considered to be in the third tier among Celestial Elephant Palace's disciples. Yixing was surprised. Zhuqiushan's strength is only at the third grade. Zhuqiushan's cultivation base was at the first level of astral reaching realm, but his strength was a notch higher than an ordinary 2-star reverend. In the Starland, he would definitely be one of the top experts among the 2-star reverends. However, among the disciples of Star Elephant Palace, he was only at the third level. This made Yixing feel surprised. This was because the younger generation martial artists who entered this extraterritorial Starland were all below the age of 25. If Zhuqiushan's strength was at the third grade, then, how strong would the geniuses who were at the first grade be? Feng Xiaoxiao said, among the younger generation martial artists who entered this extraterritorial Starland, those with the strength of 2-star reverends are at the third grade. Those with the strength of 3-star reverends are at the second grade. Only those with the strength of 4-star reverends are at the first grade. Zhuqiushan's strength is considered an expert among 2-star reverends, but compared to 3-star reverends, he's nothing. 4-star reverends were already mid-level reverends. Their strength had a huge gap compared to 3-star reverends. Zhuqiushan was not even 25 years old, but he already had the strength of a 4-star reverend. Compared to the younger generation of Starland, such a person was simply a monster among monsters. Although Yixing had an extremely strong ability to challenge those of a higher grade, he knew that if he were to face a 4-star reverend, he would not be a match for them even if he used all his trump cards. Zhuqiushan and the other two had already died in Yixing's hands. If the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace were to investigate, it was very likely that they would find out that Yixing was the culprit. It was inevitable that they would become enemies. When it came to enemies, it was natural to first understand them. Only by knowing one's own strength and the enemy's strength would one be able to come up with a countermeasure. Yixing said, "Brother Feng, are you familiar with the experts among the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace? Can you give me some pointers?" Feng Xiaoxiao tore off a mouthful of the crystal fire beast's tender meat as she nodded. Then, she drank a mouthful of Zui Xian wine and said, "You were able to come out unscathed after encountering Zhuqiushan. Then, among the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace, only the 4 people in the first and second grade can threaten you. The 2 in the second grade were Linghu Feiyang and Yan Lan. Both of them were 2-star reverends, but they had the ability to challenge those of a higher grade. The 2 in the first grade were Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu. Xing Luyang was a 3-star reverend, and he had the highest cultivation among the disciples of Celestial Elephant Palace. Xing Liuyu was a 2-star reverend, but both he and Xing Luyang had reached the level of a 4-star reverend. Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu were the younger generation of Celestial Elephant Palace's #1 clan, the Star Clan. They had the bloodline of a quasi-god in their bodies, and they were extremely powerful. Xing Liuyu, in particular, was even stronger than Xing Luyang even though he was only a 2-star reverend. He was considered a powerhouse among the 4-star reverends. "Brother Yi, you have a grudge against Celestial Elephant Palace. It's fine if you encounter Linghu Feiyang and Yan Lan, but if you encounter Xing Luyang and Xing Liuyu, try your best to run as far as possible." Yixing was secretly shocked. She had become a reverend and could challenge those of a higher grade than her. If she had been a celestial dipper sage, she might not have been any weaker than Yixing. After Feng Xiaoxiao finished speaking, she took out a disc array. The disc array recorded the array, and a ray of light shot out, revealing the silhouettes of 2 people. Yixing nodded and said, "Xing Luyang, Xing Liuyu, I'll remember them." Feng Xiaoxiao put away the disc array and said, "Among the 100 young geniuses who entered the extraterritorial Starland, there are no more than 5 who are in the first grade. However, Celestial Elephant Palace has 2 of them. Brother Yi, you've offended Celestial Elephant Palace, so you must be careful." As she spoke, Feng Xiaoxiao took out a map and handed it to Yixing. The forest we're in is called the Undirectional Forest. Without a map, you can't leave. Refine this map and your location will be displayed on the map. Then, you can use the map to find your way out. However, you must remember that there is a restriction on flying above the undirectional forest. Do not fly above the forest. Yixing took the map and said, Brother Feng, can you still leave the undirectional forest without a map? Why don't we leave together? Feng Xiaoxiao waved her hand and said, There are people after me, and one of them is a disciple of Celestial Elephant Palace. If you follow me, the chances of us encountering a few experts from Celestial Elephant Palace are very high. That will be even more dangerous. My opponents are very strong, so I can only protect myself. I can't take care of you. Yixing blinked, and his eyes were filled with shock. Feng Xiaoxiao's words revealed a piece of information that surprised Yixing. It could even be said to be shocking. Yixing looked at Feng Xiaoxiao and said, You're also one of the first grade experts? You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.